Welcome everybody. It is Conspiracy University, man. We're here every Wednesday. Yo, if you this your first time here, we got any pink tickets? No, we got one. What's going on, pink ticket? How you doing? We're here every Wednesday, and we're back on Friday with Conspiracy Cookout with the 10-4 family. Wednesdays, we definitely do PhD level conspiracy talk. This is not going to be any different. So today's topic is something that we've never talked about this specifically for an episode. We've talked about a bunch of different stuff, right? So remember, blackisuniform.com, blackistheuniform.com. So I don't even know how this came about. I think I was talking to I saw this clip and then I was like, hey yo, this is wild. And then I brought it up to Rashanae, and Rashanae was like, yo, and then she started going in on a whole bunch of other stuff related to it. And I was like, nope, we gotta talk about this because this is wild. Okay. And then the more and more I kind of researched it, I was just like, nah, we're gonna talk about a whole bunch of different stuff because it's all related. And once I gathered all the information and I looked at what it was, essentially we're talking about eugenics. Okay. And I know a lot of people, I don't even know if the word is that well known. Okay. But yeah, let me tell y'all what eugenics is, and then we'll get to the specifics of um what form eugenics is taking this time. Okay. So eugenics was invented, was the term was coined in 1883 by a dude named Sir Francis Galton. Okay. So it's a social and scientific movement aimed at improving, quote unquote, improving the genetic quality of human populations. Okay. It's a social scientific movement aimed at improving genetic quality of human populations. All right. A British polymath and cousin of Charles Darwin. Y'all know who Charles Darwin is. That's evolution. Francis Galton believed that just as physical traits could be bred in animals, human populations could be improved by encouraging the reproduction of people with quote unquote desirable traits and discouraging those with quote unquote undesirable traits. Okay. So they wanted people with desirable traits to procreate and people with non-desirable traits to not procreate. Okay. Um Oddly enough, uh guess whose dad and grandfather was a eugenicist?
Bill
Can you
Gates.
Bill Gates. Bill Gates comes from a family of eugenicists where they want to control who who procreates. That's what it's all about. Right? When we talk about um when we talk about population control, you know how these people keep talking about, oh, we got too many people on the planet. Those are eugenicists talking that shit. That's a eugenicist talking point. And the people they want to not procreate are the undesirable people. Who do y'all think the undesirable people are? Take a guess.
Everybody in this room. Black folks. Melanated.
Definitely you, Tonio. Definitely you, my man.
First off, sir,
But
see,
no.
you know what?
So, but yeah, so mainly the people that were perpetuating the eugenics movement is white people. Okay, the main proponents of the eugenics movement is white people and a lot of Zionists, right? And the populations they were trying to control were non-white Zionists. Well, were non-white people, right, who weren't Zionists. All right, that's why when you if you start looking into it, a lot of times it'll go back to like the Rockefellers, the Rothschilds, right? And they're trying to. I mean, this thing is not just black people, because they did it to white people too sometimes. Not as much though, because at the time this thing was kind of kicking off, they were trying to boost white people's numbers, and they were trying to limit the numbers of black people. All right. And so it's widely associated with them trying to kill off black people and Asians and, Indians and all of that shit. But it's not just like the more it goes on, uh, and the more sophisticated it gets, it definitely touches into white people too. But it's mainly for black people. Okay. It's mainly for black people. Once you actually start looking into it, it's mainly about controlling the number of black people. That's why you get Bill Gates in Africa trying out vaccines, and then you get all these stories coming out about how he sterilized, girls, a bunch of girls in Kenya, right? He sterilized a bunch of people in India. So in trying out all these vaccines, he's trying to figure out a way to sterilize people and make it to where they can't reproduce. And so it's a bit more straightforward in Africa and in India and places like that. In places where the Gates Foundation is testing out medical shit, it's way more straightforward in what they're doing. But when you come to like first world countries, the eugenics movement takes on a different look. It's got a different face to it. And that's kind of what I wanted to talk about today. Like everybody can see what the fuck is going on in Africa and India, right? But over here, you got to have a more discerning eye for what's going on. Got me? And so that's what we're going to do today. We're going to look at, all right, what the hell is going on over here? And how is this related to like the eugenics movement? Because remember, eugenics isn't just about limiting black people, right? It's about perpetuating the people that they consider desirable, meaning white people. All right. So it's stopping black people from procreating and making it so white people can procreate more. And so that takes on a lot of different ways, right? A lot of different methods. Okay. So everything we're talking about today falls under the eugenics movement. Um, and so this takes us into one of the first kind of major steps um, in the modern, not the eugenics movement overall, but the modern eugenics movement, right? There was something major that happened in the modern eugenics movement. By modern, I mean in the 70s and forward. Anybody know what the big thing that happened in the
Birth
modern
control.
um
Planned Parenthood.
Oh yeah, there you go.
so it was one thing. So birth control is something huge. We'll talk about that in a second. Um, but there was something even more impactful, arguably, than birth control. You can argue it's part of birth control. It was one event. They talk about it all the time. It was a
Free
darn,
love,
huh?
not the free love shit.
No. It was a court case.
Abortions.
Yep, exactly.
Oh,
Right. Roe v. Wade. Roe v. Wade. Um, was kind of the the what's the term I'm looking for? It was the most monumental event for the modern eugenics movement for a couple of reasons. A couple of reasons. One, about, right? Jamila, what did Roe v. Wade establish?
Basically, a woman's right to choose, whether to keep or abort a
Facts.
child.
And so, how's that related to like the eugenics movement?
It like basically it decreases like, um, or it increases, it helps to increase like population, which basically they don't want, like, but
It helps
what
to
they do is
increase.
they
What did you
strive
say? Did you say it
for.
helps to increase?
So basically, not like having the right to choose will help people increase the right to continue to have babies. But what they wanted to do was decrease population by forcing people or pushing that idea of abortion to decrease population, which goes into the eugenics movement.
Facts. All right. And so making it more available for people to be able to
but
terminate
but
pregnancies
only
and have
in
abortion.
certain areas, not, you know what I mean, like not in all areas. It's only in like more like urban areas where it's made more available, than in other areas. Not to say that it's not in any other areas, but it is more readily available, more talked about, more um explained, more, you know what I'm saying, like it's in the urban-ish areas.
Exactly. So essentially they made it they pushed it in black communities. Right? They put Planned Parenthood centers in a lot of black communities in hopes of stemming the population of black people. Okay, the Planned Parenthood was started by a lady named Margaret Sanger, who was one of the founder, not the founder. She was one of the progenitors of the eugenics movement. She was pivotal, right? In the
So
plan. Go ahead.
the thing about Planned Parenthood now, right, in modern day, quote unquote, they'll say, oh, it's more than, abortion, right? Because you'll see like Planned Parenthood tables at like health tables in like uh, middle school courses, but they'll say, oh, we're teaching about reproductive health and, you know, options that students can have, like, for if they are experimenting, with their sexuality and things like that. So they're not necessarily targeting like abortion or explaining or, gearing towards abortion. They're more or less trying to populate like a health of the reproductive system and organs. You know what I'm saying? So it's a whole different vibe now. But at the end of the day, it's still the same shit.
So what you're saying is that they dressed it up.
Pretty
They put some
much. They
lipstick on the
make it
pig.
seem like something that is not. Because they're like, oh, that's not really all that we offer, and the main thing is for us to make sure that students have awareness and things like that. Like it's crazy, and they're literally bringing this message to like sixth graders. Like I've been to career fairs in schools and had tables with my organization where Planned Parenthood has had tables. That motherfucker is empty. The communities do not be going for that shit, and like to the point where they literally had to close that table early, and those counselors was literally like, why did you have them here? So the communities is really turning around and saying, what is you doing? Like, why are you doing this? Why are you targeting our kids? Why are you feeding into, the bullshit essentially? And people are answering and having to answer, to that situation. But the responses are, oh, well, it's not. And like I said, it's not just abortion. They've taken on a whole new light of what their services are.
All right. So now there's another side to that. Okay. So everybody, like, most of the time when they do stuff, is not just one thing. They major in doing things that can be useful in a number of ways. Like they major in the Swiss Army knife. So they'll take one thing and then use that one thing for multiple different reasons, right? Um, Abortions is only half the story of Roe v. Wade. There's something way more important that came out of Roe v. Wade than just kind of having abortions in the black community. I mean, that's part of it, but there's something that goes with that, right? It's not just, oh, we want to kill off black babies. Um, like it's something a little bit, I ain't gonna say it's more sinister, but it's it's more sinister than just killing off black babies, and that's wild to say. that, oh, look, it's just about killing off black babies. It's something way more interesting than that, right? Um, Anybody got any idea about, besides killing black babies and limiting black population, what else came out of Roe v. Wade that that was important? Besides killing off black babies, there's something that that Roe v. Wade um, gave access to. All right, nah, nobody got you. So check this out. Um, Here, I'm gonna see if I can give y'all a hint. Y'all tell me. Um, Fetal tissue from miscarriages, animal models, tumor cell lines, and cord blood.
Stem
What?
cell?
Stem cells. Before Roe v. Wade, the only way for American researchers to get access to stem cells was if they got it from miscarriages, if they got some from like bone marrow, right? So there was some miscarriages, but that's you can't. That's not a business model,
Which they classify as abortion, might I add.
right? So they got, either you wait on somebody to have a miscarriage, you for whatever reason see if you can get some from an adult's bone marrow, right? You can try using like animal embryos, right? But if you're trying to use it in humans, it's like, right? It's hit or miss. Or you can try to use some tumor cell lines, right? Sometimes tumor cell lines you can get some stem cells from, or you can get them from all these women having babies out of the cord blood from newborn babies, right? So that's a pretty rich place. You get some of that cord blood from newborn babies, and
I thought we got a lot of stem cells from placentas. Did you say that? I missed it.
no, I hadn't got there yet. All right, so because remember, this was before Roe v. Wade. They weren't really getting them from placentas like that. Like they didn't have access to them, right? They couldn't do it. All right,
They already had Henrietta Lacks's shit.
yo. So Roe v. Wade um, gave like created an abundance of stem cells here in America, because before they had to buy them shits from other countries, and so Roe v. Wade gave access to stem cells from all those aborted fetuses, right? All those aborted fetuses is stem cells. Is all right here. And so after Roe v. Wade, a couple years later, the government made it okay for pharmaceutical companies to get the aborted fetuses and use that shit for stem cells, right? So Roe v. Wade wasn't just about the abortions; it was about the stem cells. All right, that shit's more precious than gold. God damn it, they wanted the stem cells. Okay, so that's why, like a lot of people, like when you look into it, people be like, "Yo, this is what they say." Yo, it's not. It was never about the abortions. It was always about the fact that the pharmaceutical companies and medical research companies were spending millions and millions of dollars buying stem cells from other countries, and they're like, "Yo, why are we buying this shit? Like we can have our own shit." It was never about that.
So
Okay.
I wonder in abortions, do they have paperwork or something like that that you can take the membranes with?
No, it's
Are
called
you
that's
sure?
medical waste. They're never going to give it to you.
Are you sure?
Yeah.
Because isn't a placenta technically medical
Yes.
waste?
Yeah. And so they make an
And they,
exception for your placenta, but it's technically medical waste. Like, and sometimes they give you a hard time about that shit. Depending on where you are, they might give you a hard time about it. All right, but it's technically medical waste.
yeah, they be doing that about your teeth too. Like if you're trying to, if you get like teeth pulled or something, they'll consider like, oh no, it's dangerous for us
It's
to
medical
release
waste.
your teeth
Yeah,
back to you. Yeah, that's crazy.
that's considered medical waste. Um. So even with so even with like the abortions. Hold on, where is it at? Show you what they the type of shit they do. Right. Where is it at? Even with the abortion. So this type of shit that they would do, because remember, they're doing research.
Doing a study where they were taking the scalps of 5-month-old aborted babies and they were grafting them onto lab rats and lab mice to see how much longer they could keep them growing for. And you can actually see the photographs in the published study of little baby scalps grafted onto the backs of lab rats growing little baby hairs. Those would have been the little hairs growing on the heads of little infants in Pittsburgh if they hadn't been killed by abortion and then stitched onto lab rats for experimentation. This study was funded by a grant, by multiple grants from the NIAID office, which is run by Dr. Anthony Fauci. And when I was undercover, Planned Parenthood abortion providers told me that they were the ones who were supplying the aborted baby body parts for experiments at the University of Pittsburgh.
This is one of those stories we almost hesitated to do because it is so grotesque, but it seemed like in the public interest to tell the truth about what's happening.
Yo, they use the aborted babies for all kinds of wild shit. Planned Parenthood, they don't just dispose of that shit, they sell it. They sell all of that shit. Like, yeah, people think, oh, it's cheap to get an abortion. This, that, and the other. Man, you can go down there and get one for $300 and this, that, and the other. Nigga, they don't give a fuck about your $300. They'll fuck around and give it to you for free because they finna make thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars on the aborted fucking tissue. They sell it for thousands of dollars. That shit is tens of millions of dollars every year. Selling that shit. All right.
Yeah, the University of Pittsburgh. We was literally just talking about that. The University of Pittsburgh is wild. Like and just their research labs in general. Like they be getting cake. They've been monopolizing. You know what I mean? They are a huge organization, and with the university being so connected to the medical hospitals, it's like everybody basically eating.
All right. So there was a video not too long ago. I think this might have been a guy. The audio that I just played for you, that might have been the guy in the video where, because it happened to a couple of people where he was talking to one of the leaders of Planned Parenthood, and they were talking about selling baby parts, and she was describing the parts that she be selling and how much they sell for and all of that shit. Oh, hold on. They were describing. She was just describing the shit that was going on. All right. Um, yeah. So it's the thing. All right. They actively sell. They encourage abortions so they can sell it. They can sell the fucking baby parts and do all kinds of wild, like antiquated, fucking sick experiments with the dead babies. Sometimes it's still partially live babies, or the parts of the babies. Like they do all that shit. So that's one part of the eugenics movement, right? Somebody else mentioned another part of the eugenics movement, which is birth control. All right, birth control, huge part of eugenics movement, because remember, they want to less undesirables being born and more desirables being born.
Yeah, and a lot of birth controls lead to sterilization.
A lot of birth controls lead to sterilization, to say the least. To say the least.
Linnell, I'm somewhat perplexed. And I hate
What
to
else
be
is
like
new?
that I know, and it's not on purpose. But I'm listening, and I can't help but be perplexed because when we deal with abortions, or anybody forcing people to go to abortion clinics to have this procedure, or do people want this? And, and,
It's a bit of both,
and I
actually.
only raised that. This is why I'm perplexed because we're making it like, well, hey, and I'm just assuming that we're trying to tie this in with eugenics. This is deliberate. We're trying
But
to.
I feel like the lack of transparency is deliberate because even though some people do want to get abortions, if you was to tell them like, "Hey, you finna get an abortion for free and your baby cells, they finna do da 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 da," niggas wouldn't do that shit.
And there's sometimes like when people be like, oh, I don't want to do this, but they'll be like, oh, it's probably the best option. You don't have, this, like the baby won't be, you know what I mean? They don't push like adoption. You know what I mean? Where it's like, well, you can have a safe delivery, or you can have this, and you can adopt your baby, or there's better outcomes for you. They literally like push people sometimes into there's no other way than this option for you, for you to make a better decision next time type shit.
All right. So, or even more sinister, Butterball, they make it really hard to raise kids, right? And they make it really easy to get rid of them. And so what they do is they present a lifestyle for you to be single, and they present kids as a hassle and make it seem like they're a hassle, and they try to make it hard for you to kind of to navigate with them and to live the life that you want to live with them. You know what I'm saying? And so even though they aren't forcing abortions most of the time, they do prime you for them, right? They prime the public for them as an easy way to keep living the carefree lifestyle that you want to live.
And think about people who are scared, like, and most of these people, like, they're like teens, they're like, oh, I can't take, I can't go home to my mom and do this, or my dad or whatever, like, so it's just like, oh, well, this is the way out.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So birth control, right, is definitely another part of eugenics. Okay. And so the most popular form of birth control has been the pill. All right, the birth control pill. Um, and so there has been since it first came out, there have been people who took the pill who have complained about a lot of the side effects. All right, and so there are a lot of different because the birth control pill is essentially a bunch of hormones, right? And so it's you taking hormones to convince your body that that your body has already released an egg. And so if your body thinks it already released an egg, then it doesn't release any eggs. And so um and so again, you're tampering with your hormones, right? And Rashne says that the IUDs is a big one too. That's the what's it, urinary device? Inner uterine device. That's what it's called. Yeah, IUD. But there are a couple of things that go along with altering your hormones. Now, a couple of them everybody knows, right? And so here, I'll play this. So this is somebody talking about the effects of birth control, and he gives you an alternative, right?
If you know anyone taking birth control, you gotta watch this video. They just did a study that showed that taking hormonal contraceptives shrink the woman's prefrontal cortex, which is directly involved in fear processing and emotional control. This study suggests that taking birth control makes you more emotional, which many women kind of give that review of after taking birth control. And the way they figured this out was using some imagery that can basically look into the brain and see what parts of the brain are doing what. And when you're taking birth control, it shrinks this part of your brain. Now, your forebrain, the prefrontal cortex, shuts down when you're in fear or angry. This could be why the mass media always tries to make you scared and angry all the time. So taking birth control, if it does shrink the prefrontal cortex, which that study suggests, then that's impairing your thinking. And these corporations are seemingly profiting off of women, but in a way that's not favorable, because Monsanto, which is now owned by Bayer, and Bayer is the one making the contraceptives. I mean, this is a company that owns 23% of the global seed market, that are seemingly hell-bent on controlling the world's food supply with genetically modified foods. I mean, this rabbit hole just keeps getting deeper. So if you've ever taken birth control, and if you're drinking tap water, then technically you're taking birth control because there's trace contraceptives in tap water, then you want to be taking a hormone optimizer like the wild-crafted ashwagandha from Chalk. 21 clinical studies, hormone optimization, memory, mental clarity, calm mood, and focus. A potent hormone optimizer. Everyone should be trying the ashwagandha, especially when it's wildcraft. And we're giving away free minerals. This is the last call. Comment free below, and I'll send you a DM. Check your requests.
Hey, shut up.
It was
So
the sales pitch at the end for me.
I know, right? Loved it. All right, so check it out. The everybody knows about like the birth control. Women have reported being suicidal, taking birth control pills. Fear, what my man said, emotional, right? Irrational behavior, right? But there's another, I think, more more devastating. Yeah, I like the word. There's another more devastating unintended effect of the birth control pills. And I heard this one and I was like, ooh, that's tough, right? Because I can see it. So for this one, let's see. Somebody not Roshne, because Roshne, I think you might know it. What do you guys think is another more detrimental effect of the birth control pill, right?
Outside of sterilization.
Outside of sterilization. This is it yeah, outside of sterilization. Yep.
So
There's
it would
something.
be like hormonal imbalance in something that affects your brain, like you said, like the prefrontal cortex, like your thinking, your ability to think. So it would make you
Hey
like
yo.
docile.
Hey yo, you know what, Jamila? You're close, and it's something even fucking worse than that. But you're really close, right? So this is from an article in Psychology Today from November 24th, 2024. A high quality romantic relationship offers many benefits, including better health and higher reproductive fitness. In their attempt for in their attempt to form such a beneficial relationship, people are guided by mechanisms that evolve to help them identify the most suitable person in their social milieu. Y'all hear the milieu? Y'all hear how I pronounce that? Fucking pronunciation on point. For example, they show a preference for a body odor that signals compatibility with potential mate's immune system. When they find such a desirable partner, people typically strive to maintain the relationship by employing strategies that protect it against the allure of an alternative mate, i.e., being less attentive to and devaluing the attractiveness of alternatives. Okay. Um, Commonly used contraceptive pills may change natural mates' preferences, however. These pills introduce hormones that suppress ovulation and lead to temporary fertility loss, similarly to what happens during pregnancy. Consequently, heterosexual women's perception of men may serve a different function than that occurring during ovulation. They may pursue a cooperative partner who assists with childcare rather than a genetically compatible partner. Women may therefore revert to having opposite mate preferences, becoming fixed on seeking less genetically compatible men whose odor resembles that of their apparently supportive genetic relatives. Y'all catch it? So
So it's like basically they're making women dislike men
they're
to
making
not
women
want
dislike the men
That they're
to
that they
not
would.
want
supposed
to
to be
procreate.
attracted to.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So it's like the opposite of the whole Inky and Enlil effect, where initially and during that time they were wanting them to procreate to build like the armies, and now it's like they're diminishing that effect.
Um. Not necessarily. Essentially, it's causing women to choose the wrong partner. The one that you would have chose had your hormones been in balance. You
Right.
now
So that's
can't
what I'm saying.
recognize that. Yeah.
So the Inky and Enlil effect was basically during that time, during those experiments, whatever, they were basically making people choose good partners so that they would have better outcomes for better workers, you know what I mean, as opposed to this one where they're like, not favorable outcomes. You know what I'm
Got
saying?
Okay, I see what you're saying. Yeah, yeah, I got you. Yes, yes, it's the opposite. So they did experiments to test it out, right? And so they took women's genetic profile and looked at what so they looked at like what they were deficient in. And so the women who weren't on birth on hormone birth control, they would be a so then they let these women smell these different shirts. And the shirt that they smell that they chose, they're like, oh, I like this person. Um, they then tested the hormones of that person, and what they found was the scent that they chose was that of someone who complemented their genetic makeup. So whatever she was deficient in, he had an abundance of, right? Whatever, you get what I'm saying? And so whatever she had an abundance of, they were deficient. It's kind of like that. Yeah, like smelling the underarms. Yep, just like that, right? And so when you're in your natural state, you'll pick someone that complements you. But if you're in your unnatural state, then you've lost the ability to determine who your best complement is. And so essentially, the birth control pills are preventing people from choosing the right mates.
That's the destruction of the nuclear family, because they ain't even letting niggas have a nuclear family by letting them pick what's supposed to be right for them.
Facts. That's facts.
Hey,
And
so
so,
I have a
um,
question.
yeah, what's up?
So if you're not procreating with somebody who is kind of your, like your puzzle piece, then is that like, that seems like the offspring would not be quite right. So is that causing
No,
problems in the children?
so no, so it's not so much of that. It's more about compatibility. So now, let's say, you get married, you stop taking the pill because it's time to have babies, and now the person that y'all were cool before, all of a sudden your hormones change, and what you liked in this motherfucker is like, I don't even like this person.
Oh, so now the family breaks up.
Now your family breaks up.
Oh, okay. So it's really like pheromones and attraction.
Right,
Okay, so
exactly.
not the offspring. So babies
Right.
are okay. It's breaking up. Ooh, wow, that is sinister.
That's
Are the
wild.
babies okay if the family ain't together?
Well,
Exactly.
no,
Ask the destruction of the
no, no,
nuclear
no. You're
family.
right. I just was like, are they messing with the genetic makeup of the babies? But yeah, the family. Okay, all right, I get it.
Would
Mm-hmm.
would technically wouldn't the answer be yes if uh it seemed like the probability never mind.
Yeah. No, good stuff.
Well, no, there's actually non-hormonal
Can
birth
y'all
control
hear
as
me?
well.
Oh, go ahead, Josh, and then you go, Rashnae. What you say, Josh?
Yeah, there's non-hormonal birth control as well, though. Like there's ways, like there's copper IUDs and other non-hormonal methods to avoid unwanted pregnancy. So there's other options as well.
That's true. That's very true. But thing is, the most popular birth controls are the IUD and the pill, which both use hormones. But yes, there are other things that.
And Depo's a high one too. Depo
Facts.
Provera.
Yep. Was that you, Rashnae? You was trying to talk?
Yeah, so I was just going to say, like, the effects of the hormonal birth controls. What's happening is a lot more women are discovering that birth control is not the best option for them, but they've been married and found their partners on birth control. Then they stop taking the birth control and then realize, like, I don't really like him.
Yeah, see, I did both. Like, I started dating my wife, uh, I don't know, as teenagers, and then there was a period where she was on hormonal birth control, and it definitely like fucked with shit. And now she's off of it again, and it's definitely back to normal. So definitely, I've seen both sides.
Mhm.
So wait, Rachna, you're saying basically like the women who found their mates on birth control, once they got off birth control after being married, basically their hormones rebalanced and they don't like their partners anymore?
Facts.
Yes, so if you watch The Business of Birth Control, they did a study on it. Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah, that make a whole lot of sense. Cause you know what, and then you know what more makes sense is like you know how when people have their children and then like literally it's like oh my goodness we have these children and then after they have their children like all the relationships start to fall apart, not only because you know they're dealing with like everybody's dealing with like postpartum, but it is also the re-regulation of those fucking hormones, and everybody is like essentially like their real self is like a reset and they like oh hold up, I don't like you, you don't like me, and you know by that time it's just you know too late, but yeah that makes sense.
It's because during that process when she got off the birth control, they was too busy focused on having a child versus like, do I actually really like you? So yeah.
Oh, actually, you breaking up, bro? You there? Is it there? X, you
It
there?
makes sense as to my dating life before I met my man because, child,
Good stuff. Um. Okay. So yeah,
Oh,
that's one thing to think of, huh?
my bad.
Go ahead, X.
yeah, we can hear you
Go
now. Go
ahead.
ahead.
Oh, did we lose him? Maybe he gonna come right back. Hold on. So yeah. Um. The birth control game is dirty. Like we, that's a whole different conversation, but it's kind of part of it, right? So the eugenics conversation is really rich, and so there are lots of different aspects to it, right? So I definitely just wanted to touch on those right quick. Um, the other thing I wanted to touch on was prenatal care, okay? And so there's an entire um, there's an entire missing piece to understanding like what's going on with babies and why they're coming out with all these different problems. You know what I'm saying? And that's something that's not really talked about. Generally, the way that it's broached is broached in a way in where it's too late. So we've been talking about kind of nutrient deficiencies and mineral deficiencies for a long time. And that's one of the things that, especially as a young person, you don't really understand unless like somebody in your family is kind of hipping you to the game and letting you understand that, yo, what you do with your body is going to affect everything that happens, including your children. Right. But if you don't understand it, then you won't see the fact that, yo, you being nutrient deficient has ramifications for the children that you bring into it. So one of my favorite doctors, Dr. Wallach, right? Dr. Joe Wallach, who talks about like nutrient deficiencies, he kind of dug into the what's causing like birth defects and how to eliminate it. So this is a clip from Dr. Joe Wallach.
My personal pet peeve is birth defects. We're able to prevent 98% of all birth defects in animals, and we do this with what we call preconception nutrition. It's so effective, we're even able to prevent birth defects that are considered to be genetic in humans. We can prevent Down syndrome, cystic fibrosis, muscular dystrophy, heart defects of all kinds, club limbs, missing limbs, hernias, biochemical defects such as epilepsy and PKU and other things like that. We prevent 98% of these in animals with what we call preconception nutrition. We give the female animal for 60 to 90 days before they conceive, before AI or before natural breeding. We give them all these vitamins and minerals and trace minerals and essential amino acids and fatty acids. So when the embryo begins to develop, it begins to develop immediately in optimal nutrition. In humans, we wait till the woman misses 1 or 2 or 3 menstrual periods. She then goes to the OB and gets the blessing. Yes, my dear, you're pregnant. Now you may have your prescription for prenatal vitamins and minerals. Now the human brain, spinal cord, heart, and other major organs form in the first 28 days of pregnancy. If the woman gets the prenatal vitamins and minerals at the 30th day or the 45th day or the 60th day, does it protect the embryo in any way? No, absolutely not. And as a result, the birth defect rate in America, this was just published 2 months ago by the University of California, San Francisco, the birth defect rate in America now is 1 out of 33 babies in America is born with some kind of defect, either physical, emotional, or mental. 1 out of 33. And if you look at animals that receive pellets or cake that have vitamins and minerals and trace minerals in it, the birth defect rate in those animals receiving commercial or prepared diets is 1 out of 500,000 compared to 1 in 33 for humans. Now you should have gotten this notice, especially you ladies who go to OBs. 3 years ago, the CDC, Center for Disease Control, came out and said that women who are sexually active, whether they plan a pregnancy or not, should be taking vitamins and minerals so if a pregnancy does occur, the embryo is immediately protected. For $40 a pregnancy, we can prevent 98% of all birth defects and all the human misery that goes along with it.
It's how they prevent birth defects in animals. They make sure that all the animals have all the nutrients in their diet.
So essentially, taking all of the vitamins and minerals that you have, that you need, and then conceive.
It's right. It's making sure, right, making sure your body isn't in a state of nutrient deficiency.
That part.
If, if
So
you do
also a
that,
flushing out process as well.
yeah, you definitely want to get the toxins out because the babies take a lot of the fucking
Yeah.
toxins. Like they'll take the toxins from the
If
mom,
you had to guess, I
right?
mean, I'm gonna ask you, but if you had to guess, how long do you
Yeah.
think that process should quote unquote actually take? Because I know people as soon as they get off birth control, like they instantly pregnant. But if we're talking about a flushing out process, when did the body properly flush all that out? You know?
Yo, them hormones, it could take a minute to get them hormones out of there,
It really depends
right?
on the person and what they've been doing to
Yeah.
themselves, and then it's like you get all of that straight, and then you got to get yourself to like a reset point to where you're actually absorbing all of that shit properly.
Yeah. So when it comes to like that's one of them individual things, right? Depends on your body makeup, how you process toxins, how your metabolism, all of that shit, and what you're eating, like it, how your kidney function, liver function, all of that shit, right? So that's a really individualistic kind of thing, like how long. So yeah, but just in terms of just understanding how prenatal works, right? These aren't things that we're told about. Like this shit you should be told about in high school. Like, hey, ladies, if you guys plan on, getting married, starting a family, you have to make sure that your body is in a state to where, the baby is the healthiest. Now, young moms are generally okay because their bodies are in a better state. Older people who plan on having kids, like, yo, it's like this is when it's most important for all the ladies that are, mid to late 30s, right? Making sure that your body's of in a state of homeostasis. You're not deficient.
But it's the men. It's the men that the genetic makeup comes from. So it's the men that have to actually also, make sure that their bodies are in a proper state so that when, the egg is fertilized, that it's being fertilized with something substantial.
It's both of y'all.
You know what this makes me think of? I believe you opened up, bro, with like talking about fear around it. As soon as young women come of age, the first thing most families that I know, oh, put on birth control, put on birth control. And it's like, where was the proper education surrounding sex and things of that nature versus just throwing her on birth control because, you don't want her having a baby. So that's just one of the things I want to throw out there about how many people actually were put on birth control from a young age without actually having that proper education or that talk to regarding, things of that nature. So, yeah.
It really doesn't matter how much you talk to kids. They're going to do what their body wants them to do. They're going to listen to their body overall more than they're going to adhere to any conversation that you had with them. And because the body, the hormones is telling them that those feelings are telling them, oh, I want to feel this, I want to do this, I want to, and their friends as well. You should experience this. The influences around them, you know what I'm saying, is what is actually helping to increase those exchanges that you're talking about more than, oh, we're talking to you. You're like, because there's a lot of kids that have actually had sex education and they still do dumb shit.
So think about the clip that Solomon played. He said the prefrontal cortex is slowed by the birth control.
But this is pre-birth
So,
control. That's what I'm saying. Like they have been given that information prior to, right?
uh, in my from my experience, they don't have those talks. It's just immediately throw on birth control. That's why I was
Yeah,
saying
no,
that.
I get you, and I know that there are a lot of people like as soon as, oh, this is their age, like throw them on. But there's a lot of people in today's age that the people who are trying to break those generational curses who have been like, no, this is not going to happen. We're not going to have teen pregnancies, where they're having these conversations with their children. You know what I'm saying? And when they hit that age, they are more likely to be like, throw all of that shit out the window. I am doing this because this is what my body feels like. This is what my friends are doing. These things aren't happening to my friends. You know what I'm saying? And this is what I want to do. And boom.
I
All
had
right.
a question though, because I feel like
What's up?
even to kind of what X is saying, like to have the conversation, and even like how Josh brought up the non-hormonal birth control, like I feel like that just to say like, oh, we just gonna put on birth control is kind of like a band-aid, which is fucking shit up more. And I get what you saying, Jamila, where it's like, because I was that age and it ain't matter, you know what I'm saying? Like I get what you saying, but it's like, if I was offered another option of birth control that wouldn't have done all that fucked up shit to me, I would have been like, all right. Especially if, like, to your point, Jamila, like, the kid gonna do what they do. As opposed to
Right.
just saying, like, this is what we're gonna do. I know about Depo, so we finna just go ahead and get Depo. You know
Right.
what I'm
And think
saying?
about this now. And this is reality, right? As a parent, I'm speaking as a parent. Doctors' offices are hitting our kids at adolescence. Like I know people are like, "Oh, I never learned about this until." You have to remember what your age range is, right? So if you're like, if you're like in your 30s and 40s right now, your parents probably never did really have that talk with you, right? So if you're a parent at 30 and 40, you're having those talks with your children now more so because you didn't have those talks, right? But at the same time, you have to remember what we're dealing with as parents. At 10, 11, 12 years old, even 9, doctors' offices are like, hey, can you step out of, the room so we can have time, private time with the kid to talk? Nigga, what?
Yeah, right.
They
No,
definitely do that, but I'm
that's
not gonna cap.
real. That's
My
real.
child always says like, and my child 13, but like they do that, and my child be like, I don't feel comfortable without my parents here,
Right,
or
but
like
not
even if
all
it's
kids
something
are
that he
like
want to
that, and
talk
not all
about,
parents are
like
like that. Some parents, a lot of
no,
parents
I
will
feel it.
probably step out, but there's some parents like think about what
James
that
ain't
gives.
stepping out yet.
Think
James,
about the mindset that puts
Yeah,
into the
yeah,
right.
kid, right? Even
yeah.
if parents don't step out, think about what that set. Think about the seed that's being planted in that child's mind. Oh, I can talk to someone without my parents' consent or my parent present. Do you understand what I'm saying?
No, that definitely makes sense. But yeah, like they definitely have said that before, and I know me, I ain't gonna want to walk out, but I ain't gonna. James ain't walking out, but like Peyton just be like, I don't feel comfortable with my parents not being here. Like, why do they have to leave? And they're like, oh no, it's just if you want to tell us something. He be like, I can say it here. But I feel like that just goes to like the relationship that we got with him type shit. But I definitely get what you're saying. The narrative that it pushes on the kids and the mindset they
Exactly.
put them in.
They're targeting kids at younger ages to be able to have that exchange without their parents present. And also just think about that, what is that, HPV vaccine? That vaccine is pushed on kids before they're even considering or thinking about having sex. They're like, oh well, we're guarding, this is a precaution. Get
Yeah,
the fuck out of here.
preventative.
You're
Yeah.
planting these ideas into our kids' minds before we even have the ability or the chance to talk to them.
All right.
Yes, indeed. That's fucked up. It's like these kids are getting it ingrained. Like, ooh, I don't have to listen to what they say. The doctor, who's this, certified medical person who is smarter than my parents, they say I can control what I want to do. Hmm.
All right.
Mm.
So, um, we've talked about kind of what eugenics is. We've talked about kind of how you see it manifest, right? Some of the things that they definitely want. Of course, it's to limit black births, right? But they also use the abortions to harvest stem cells to help other people live, right? um, Not only help other people live, but they're actually giving like hysterectomies to black women and doing uterus transplants into white women, right? So they're trying to help white elevate the white birth rate, decrease the black birth rate. Okay. Um, we've seen them uh, the way that they behave when it's like before you have a baby. Like they don't give you the information you need to get your body in a state, in the best state possible to have babies, right? Because remember, they make money off of people who are not fully healthy but not dead. So they need you in the middle. So they have no financial interest to keep you, to get you healthy, right? And they don't want you to have a healthy baby. So they're trying to create customers from the start. All right. Now let's go to the next step in the process. Right. So you get pregnant. So let's say you make it past the gauntlet. So you're running the gauntlet here. All right. So you get pregnant. Right. Um, you avoid the hormonal birth control pills. You find somebody. Right. You get pregnant. Right. And for whatever reason, you resist the urge to go and get an abortion. So they don't get you there. Right? You ate great, you got your minerals and your vitamins, and so they didn't get you there. Okay, so now you got a pregnancy going. We got a baby cooking. Okay, they still lying to you though. Remember, they tell you a pregnancy is how many months? X? How many months is a pregnancy?
But
9
10?
months.
They tell us 9, but
9 months, right? But how many weeks is a pregnancy?
four, how many weeks?
40,
40.
40, right? God damn it, how many fucking months? How many weeks in a month?
4.
4.
4. Right? 9 times 4 is 36. Where the fuck we get where we get 9 months from? I don't know, but they lying to us, right?
That part.
So we know they lying to us, right? They lying from the start. Like everything about this whole situation got us fucked up.
Well, I
But
can
I
explain
wonder
the
if it's
discrepancy
because,
there.
oh, go ahead.
Ain't no goddamn. Don't try to white explain the discrepancy,
No,
Josh.
no, no,
It's
no,
fucking.
no, no,
It's
no. It's serious.
what?
So,
Go
no,
ahead.
yeah,
Let me hit a white. Let me hit a white man explain. Go
no,
ahead.
because the weeks are from conception, and the pregnancy is from your first missed menstrual cycle. So it's 9 months plus, the delta between your first missed cycle and when conception occurred. So that's where you get the extra
So let
weeks.
me ask you this, Josh. What if I get pregnant as soon as the goddamn egg is released, right? And I don't miss my cycle for another 3 goddamn weeks. How long was I pregnant for before I missed my cycle?
3 weeks.
There you go.
Yeah. So that's where
So
the delta between
we just
nine
don't
months
count
and
those weeks.
no, it
That's what I'm saying. That's
depends.
why I don't think that they count those months
Yeah,
or
again,
weeks. I meant to say those
we're not
weeks.
talking about what they count. We know they count something different. That don't make it the truth. They're
I
That's what
lying.
I'm
agree.
finna say. I feel like they
Well,
don't
because it'd be
count
different for every
the
nine
yeah, I don't
plus.
feel like they count the conception cause I know when I got pregnant with my daughter and it still was 10 months after that that I had her. Well, she stayed in there, but it wasn't 36 weeks after that was my due date.
Bruh. Like I said,
To me, I think it's literally like when you find out, you're typically like between like that 4 to 8 week or 9 week, measurement. So from that point, that's where they're counting like, oh, there's 9 months. Like, you know what I'm saying? But you really,
nigga,
it's
it's
really
10
10
months.
months
I
for
don't know
sure.
why y'all keep trying to
No,
nigga
I'm just
explain
saying
to
it's
these
really 10
motherfuckers.
months before, but in your head, like you like, damn, I found out I got my test. Like it's official. And it's like, damn, that first month is really not really there.
Mm, like
That's a
I said,
biological
Because
process.
most
It's like fucking throwing shit at the
And
wall.
most women, so technically, most women, if you're going to like miscarry, like you lose the baby within that first period of time. You know what I'm saying? Those first few weeks, if you're going to quote unquote miscarry. You feel what I'm saying? So maybe
mm-hmm.
I wonder if that's why they don't technically count that 10th month and they're just like, okay, 9 months. You know what I'm saying? I
Hey
don't
man,
know.
y'all doing a lot of nigga explaining for the fact that it's fucking 40 weeks. Like it's a lot of nigga explaining going on. I hear people trying to do the mental gymnastics with the math and all of that shit. I'm not that slow, nigga. It's 10 weeks. What is we doing? I mean, it's 10 months. I'm sorry, it's
10
10
months.
months.
We said that though. We said
10
that.
months. That's what it
But we
is.
just trying to figure
But
out how they dropped off you know what I'm saying? Like the 13th month, they do the same thing with the gestational period. Like they dropped off the extra month. Like,
they playing calendar games. It's fine. Yeah, Rashne, what you say is 10 months or longer, huh? Rashne the doula, what you say? This 10 months or longer?
Yeah, because not every woman delivers at 40 weeks. Some women deliver at 41, some women deliver at 42, and the longest recorded birth was 43 and 1. And that's not to say uh, what pregnancies were not recorded.
Sweet. All right. So that being said, um, we're gonna dive into some more of their lies and how we got to these lies. All right. Um, Shout out to Rashne for the live. So I'm gonna play some clips. These clips come from a documentary called "The Business of Birth." It was done by Ricky Lake. Y'all remember Ricky Lake? Um,
Yes.
90 from the 90s. Yo, she did a documentary called "The
messy
Business of
ass.
Birth."
My midwife was in that.
Sweet. So yeah, Ricky Lake did a documentary called "The Business of Birth." It was dope. It's a lot of really good information in it. And so we're gonna listen to some of it right now, right? Um, because they're talking about C-sections and how as a culture in America specifically, right? How as a culture, Americans have slid down the path of having C-sections as opposed to vaginal birth and some of the problems that it causes. Okay. Um, so let's look at kind of why, right? So we're going to look at why exactly do doctors um, do C-sections as opposed to kind of natural birth. So let's try to get into this part first, as to what the fuck, how do we end up here?
Very few doctors have ever observed a normal birth in medical school or in the hospital. It's almost an oxymoron.
How often do you get to see a fully natural birth? Rarely. Almost never.
Well, I always think that midwives do a better job at the normal deliveries than we do. For a normal, low-risk woman, it's overkill going to a doctor. It's just too much. The doctor's not really excited about things when they're normal.
The EEG, the BP monitor, and the AVV.
Yes, they don't.
And get the machine that goes bing.
Because obstetricians are socialized to search for pathology, they often see pathology where it doesn't exist. They find pathology because then they have something to do.
Yeah.
An obstetrician is a trained surgeon and usually very, very good at what he or she does, and thank goodness we have them. I'm so grateful that we have obstetricians.
They're surgeons. They should be doing surgery all day, every day when it's needed. They should not be doing normal births because they're not trained in it. They have no idea how to do it.
everywhere else in the world, that's what they do. You can go to Great Britain, you can go to France, Germany, Scandinavia, Australia, New Zealand, Japan, go to all the highly developed countries where they are losing fewer women and fewer babies around the time of birth. And what do you see? You see midwives attending 70 or 80% of all the births. And the doctors are there to take care of the small percent that develop the complications. That is the proven system everywhere in the world, and the United States stands alone.
All right. So the first thing we hear was that in medical school, right, doctors do not see natural births. In residencies, they rarely see natural births. Okay. They are trained for trauma. Like this is allopathic medicine, period. They're trained for trauma. You know what I'm saying? And so a natural birth is them sitting there waiting, and that's not what they get trained for. Right? They don't see it when they're getting trained for a lot. Because I don't know if you heard on the clip, the early in the clip, there was some ladies. It was like a panel of doctors, and somebody asked, "Yo, how many natural births did you guys see in medical school?" They was like, "None." Right?
What's crazy?
None. Huh?
What's crazy is when you go through the whole process of going to the hospital and shit. It's almost like it's like you if you can catch it, you can catch it. But like the during that time when it's probably like doing the checkout or stuff, and then they start doing shit like um we can't feel the hear the baby's heart rate because the baby is moving, but they try to make it seem like it's something more than that, but it's extra shit that they put onto that. So it's like it's nothing wrong with the baby, but y'all can't hear the baby's heart rate because the motherfucker is moving because it don't want you to mess with it or whatever. And then they turn that into spin that into some whole other shit into okay, we're going to have to rush you this and this and this and this, and it's too much to even explain to somebody like, hey, they own some other shit, and this is not really what's happening in the midst of all of that.
Hmm.
What
Yeah.
was the
So
question? I thought you said something about natural birth. Is that what you asked?
I didn't. No, I didn't ask. I didn't ask any questions.
Oh,
I'm
what
talking.
did you say?
The fuck.
Well,
I'm
I was going
talking
to ask
about
you,
how
but then Ocean started
doctors.
talking, and I didn't want to cut him
Yeah,
off.
that's fine. No, I'm talking about how OBs in medical school don't really see natural births. Right? They're trained for surgery. They're trained surgeons. Right? They get excited when it's time to do surgery. That's what they're there for. In their mind, that's what they're there for. Right? Where in other countries, right, they got midwives. They got people whose job it is to sit there and wait. Right? They hurry up to wait because that's what the job is. Whereas OBs, right, they feel like, oh, my job is to do surgery. Right? That's the mindset that they take. Okay. Um, and so that being their mindset, what we start to see is that C-sections are being pushed, right? They're not just done when, they're needed. They're being pushed. And to the point where it's becoming more fashionable than anything else.
The number of American women giving birth by cesarean section is at an all-time high.
These days, a record number of moms are giving birth by cesarean section. Cesarean sections have now become the most common major surgical procedure performed on women.
As we all know, the cesarean section rate in this country is going up, up, up. Why? What is really, really underneath this? Cesarean is extremely doctor friendly because instead of having a woman in labor for an average of 12 hours, 7 days a week, it's 20 minutes and I'll be home for dinner.
There was a study that came out many years ago which showed that the C-section, if you looked over a 24-hour period, the peaks in C-sections were 4 in the afternoon and 10 o'clock at night. So it's obvious that the 4 in the afternoon is, it's late in the day. I don't know what's going on here. I want to get out of here. And the 10 o'clock at night is, I don't want to be up all night.
Some doctors have taken advantage of patients' interest in cesarean and put it on the table as an option. And certainly it makes the obstetrician's life potentially much less complicated.
We focused on the metropolitan New York area, and as bad as the Manhattan rates were, for instance, in Suffolk County, they've got at least 2 hospitals that are over a 40% rate. Westchester has one that's close to 45%. These are huge, crazy numbers, and it's just amazing, and the public doesn't know about it.
The underlying problem is, unfortunately, litigation.
There was a doctor who trained me who used to say, they can never fault you if you just section them. Just section them.
There's definitely a standard that at the end of the day, if you did the C-section, you did everything that you could to get the baby out. So the C-section may be done faster.
And that's pretty much the current thinking. It seems like in obstetrics is like, oh, we might get sued, so let's just do C-sections on everybody.
It's a growing crisis.
Somebody clearly is going to have to step in and stop the trend, or else we're going to get to 100%.
All right. So, couple takeaways from that clip. One, laziness, or I ain't gonna even say lazy. I'm gonna say convenience, right? The top times for C-sections are, y'all remember it? 4 in the afternoon and 10 at night. It sounds like somebody going home for their shift is like, yo, my shift is almost over,
They said,
right?
let me beat rush hour.
Let me get this done so I can get home,
And what's
right?
crazy about that? What's crazy about that time frame? The youngest was born around 10 at night.
Right.
C-section.
So you got the 2 time periods. He said 4 in the afternoon, which is my shift is almost over. Let me get to the crib so I ain't got to be rushing back here. Or 10 p.m., which is, yeah, I'm on call, but nigga, if I let this shit go, I'm gonna have to be up all night waiting and checking on you instead of being in the doctor's lounge sleep. You know what I'm saying? 4 in the afternoon and 10 p.m. at night. Right?
Solomon,
What's up?
you know how we be talking about birth charts and stuff? How does that align? If you got a
Yo,
lot of these kids
that's
being
them dictating your birth chart. They telling you when it's about to happen. They
So
dictate
basically, you got to ask people, was you a C-section to see if they're real or not?
it.
Oh yeah, yeah. The C-section is definitely a like a yeah, that's definitely a dictation of the birth chart and shit. Because essentially, if you leave the baby alone, they're going to make their debut when they're ready.
Mm-hmm.
So that's definitely fucking up the actual birth chart. Plus, they're not brewing long enough to even get all of the minerals that they're actually going to get and stuff. And then you have the time frame in which that they were actually going to be born. So that switch the that changes the what is that? The mineral salts that they're going to have to get, but they're all of that shit switches everything up.
But it also flips it, like if you reframe it, it also highlights the agency that parents have to, try not to do C-sections so that they can, look at the stars, look at the charts, and then see when your baby's gonna come, and then if it's favorable or whatever. I'm not saying like you should play God, but like if you're just like, ooh, this looks good, like she's already coming around this time, maybe we can naturally have her sit a little longer or naturally speed her up a bit. I don't know. I just when you
Not
guys were
you trying
talking
to
about it,
force the child destiny.
look, I'm just saying they do it in India. It seems to work well.
Does it seem to work
I'm
well?
just look. I was just flipping it because it's like we can either highlight the fact that they be messing with people, baby's agency, or sorry, baby. Y'all know what I'm saying. I'm tired messing with baby's destinies, or we can be like, oh, this is some agency that we have, like as humans giving birth.
I hear you. And so the other thing that was also in the chart, there was a couple more things. Not in the chart, in the clip. One was when they did a study on how many C-sections happened at all these hospitals in New York, right? They had a few hospitals at 40% and a couple at 45%. That's almost half. Almost half of the fucking babies are being C-sectioned.
Oh, them doctors real lazy up there.
Facts.
I
40%
wonder. I wonder
in New
how many
York.
of those people was like they was about to have cusper babies and was like, hell no, I'm holding out for a cancer. Schedule my shit during this time.
You know?
People do schedule because my sister in law definitely scheduled for my nephew to be C-section on 2/2/22.
Did she?
She did, and my nephew came out the C-section on 2/2/22.
Why she trying to hijack my birthday? Dude, my mom was in labor for fucking two
This
days
ain't
with me.
about you,
That's all it
Tutu.
is.
This ain't about you.
Bruh.
I would be like,
Hey,
wow.
hold on, Josh. You're saying it's an elective procedure? Is that what you're saying?
Sometimes it is.
Yeah, I was gonna say, unless it's deemed medically necessary, like your insurance won't cover it. But I'd be interested to see in high income areas how much of it is a correlation due to, it's almost
Hey,
seen as like a cosmetic surgery.
hey, Josh. Do you not understand how they manipulate people into getting C-sections?
Well, no, I mean, they provide it as an option.
No, they manipulate people into getting it.
It's because he's talking with big income. So, Josh, you like my sister-in-law, who they like planned it out, We want to take it out this time, 2/22/22. But it's some people, like my cousin-in-law, who they like scared the fuck out of her and told her, like, oh, your baby's kind of flipped. We could try and turn the baby, but if you want to get a C-section, we won't have to try and turn the baby, and the baby will be fine. You know?
Well, it's why we hired I mean, in my case, we hired a doula who does this, full time to advocate on behalf, so we didn't have to worry about being manipulated. Like, so
That
there's,
makes sense.
it's you make the decision for yourself. You've got to arm yourself with, people that care about you and want to advocate for you, and or get the training yourself. But I understand how you could go in without the information or the team and be led down that path.
But even with the
Russ,
help of a
Russ,
doula, you're still in a vulnerable state. And if someone's telling you, like, something's wrong with your baby, or your baby's not going to fit, or whatever fear mongering they've already started throughout your whole prenatal process, when it comes to that point, parents are easily saying yes, no matter what the doula has taught them, it's discussed with them. At the end of the day, your doula cannot speak for you. You have to speak for yourself. And
I mean, it's
what
also
I
just
have seen,
statistics, though.
and what I have seen I've been to 4 births in the last 2.5 weeks. 3 of those births were C-sections that were not necessary at all. There was no emergency. There was no like life-threatening issues. Yes, at the end of the day, the parents agreed, but they were agreeing under like traumatic
Duress.
circumstances. They're
Yeah.
under duress. Like mom's been laboring for a long time, or maybe baby had 1 or 2 D cells earlier in the labor process, and then now they're like, well, the doctors have already told them their whole pregnancy, like your baby's gonna be too big, your baby's gonna be too big, and then when labor is taking its time like it should, then it's like, well, remember I told you your baby wasn't going to be able to fit, so maybe this is the best way to go. Remember he had D cells earlier, and then the mom is exhausted, and she's like, well, okay. They're not asking these questions when mom is like not in duress, when she can make a clear, like, well-educated decision.
Well, you
That's
I,
can take the
And
human element
and
out
you
of
know
it
what? He
too.
made a good point where he said, okay, is there a correlation to see the correlation between the income and C-section? Maybe not necessarily the income levels of people, but maybe also thinking about the insurance, right? Because which insurances are literally paying for that? Just like you said, hey, some insurances don't pay for it. Is there a particular
all
insurance
insurances pay for
or no,
C-sections.
no, no, no. But there's some insurances that don't pay for certain procedures and coverages like after. Like not all insurance is good insurance as far as a C-section is concerned. Or any other medical procedures is a concern. And intention, like you could have like the massive copays. You know what I'm saying? So it's like what insurances are overall like in the top tier of what is being ran for
So
these
in
procedures.
order to reach 40% on C-sections, that means that all insurance companies are paying. The doctors aren't dude. The last doctor on there, she said her mentor told her, "Hey, yo, just section them, because because what that does, that's what they signal to everybody else that, yo, we did everything we can to to save the baby, and so if we section them, then we'll get less lawsuits. So the insurance is pro C-section because they get less lawsuits from babies.
I still would like to see that, you know what I mean, statistically, like, just like he was saying, like income versus, insurance for me, because I also think about it like as far as like I literally just was having this conversation with my doctor where it's like, oh, get a mammogram. And I'm like, well, I would prefer an ultrasound. And it's like, oh, insurance is not going to cover it. Like, what the fuck you mean insurance ain't going to cover the goddamn ultrasound? They going to cover the mammogram, but they ain't going to cover the ultrasound? That's crazy.
All right. So when it comes to C-sections, though, yo, doctors present it like, yo, it's life saving. It has to be done for the baby and for the mother, right? And insurance covers that shit.
Yeah, less liability on their ass.
Less
And that's
liability.
exactly how they push it. They make it seem like it's a scary situation, like it's something wrong with the baby, or we can't, you know what I'm saying, we don't want to risk it being an issue between the baby or losing the baby, blah blah skip, and they present it just like that when there's nothing really wrong, but you can't, it's like within the moment of actually that occurring, it's like even pointing that out is an issue.
All
So
right.
I
If you
mean,
could
but
see
let's
the
be
way
real.
that
Go ahead, Nick.
Go ahead,
I was
Roxanne.
just gonna see if you guys could see the way that everybody's aura changes once a mom decides to get a C-section. Everybody is so fucking excited. It's crazy to watch. Like before then, everybody's just like, "Oh, like, are you okay? Do you need anything?" Like, "Oh
instant
yeah,
shit.
blah blah blah." And then once it's like, "Well, maybe you should get a C-section," then everybody's so fucking excited once mom decides to get a C-section. It's a party.
Instant shift. They go straight. They start moving quickly. Like they get to doing this. Okay, let's do this, and it's in and out.
Right. So it's kind of like with
That's a surgery.
yeah, that's what they said earlier. It's exciting. It's a surgery. This is what we train for, and ain't no lingering. You know what I'm saying? This person in the hospital, we get this room emptied after this shit is over with. She going to a different floor. We good, right? It's more convenient for everybody.
It's busy.
Um, so what we find. So now we're talking. So that was the motivations, right? Right. That was all right. What's driving all these C sections? All right. We see what time they're happening around quitting time and chilling time. Right. We see it's happening. So the study they did was at 40% all over the place in New York. Right. Meaning that it's beyond income. It's not about, oh, rich people getting more. No, it's everybody. Right. No matter if you got a doula or not. Right. They can manage to get you where they want to get you. Okay, and you got to be really strong to resist that shit. You got to know what you're talking about. I saw one. I was looking at something, and the doctor said, "Yo, so a lady asked, well, is this really necessary? I want to, I have thoughts about it." And the doctor said, "Yo, are you a doctor? How many babies have you delivered? Right? We're pretty much a doctor be big dogging people. Okay, and so let's get to some of the mechanics of how this shit happens. So first of all, right? The entire concept of the way that they have people delivering babies is wrong.
The more you can move through your labor and the more you can move through contractions, they don't seem as intense. To lay still, and it's like, who would want to do this? It's like, I just want to get out off this bed and move my hips.
The lithotomy position is the most physiologically dysfunctional position ever invented for birth because putting the mother flat on her back literally makes the pelvis smaller, makes it much more difficult for the woman to use her stomach muscles to push, and therefore makes it much more likely that an episiotomy will be cut or forceps will be used or the vacuum extractor will be used.
So, the just the idea of you laying on your back, goes contrary to nature,
You're supposed to
right?
work it out the same way you worked it in.
No, because a lot of them worked it out just like that on their back, but it's
Oh
not the
my
point.
God.
Yeah. So the concept of them bringing you in, laying you on your back, goes against nature. That's not how you're meant to give birth. All right. So you're supposed to be. You want to use the fictional force of gravity. You want to use the electrostatic gradient to your advantage. All right.
Back
Yes, the
when
fictional force of gravity. I like how you did it.
I
back
know,
when
right?
YouTube was the Wild West, I saw this lady give birth on all fours, and I just remember thinking like, "Oh wow, this is how we're supposed to do it." And
That's
like,
how I
'cause
did Fee.
That's how
right,
my knee was
okay,
born, on
because
all
like I
fours.
had seen animals do it like that, but then I remember that I'll always remember that. I think you don't forget seeing a baby born, but like she was on all fours and she was kind of like
Yes,
rocking front
doggy
and
style.
back and moving her hips, and then that baby kind of like popped out, and gravity kind of helped it, and it looked more natural, I guess is what I'm trying to say. Like you wouldn't think so because of what we see on TV all the time, but like her being on all fours and that baby popping out, like I was like, yeah, that looks right. Like, and she looked like she was like able, just like the clip was saying, just able to move through it. Like you can tell she was just doing what her body needed.
Yeah, that's what the doula was saying when we had my Lee at home. Work it out like you worked it in all fours.
And again,
Not
this is
doggy
like up to the
style.
choice. Like most beds have a bar and you can, get up and squat too. So like let's just, take a class at a time and figure out what works for you.
Yeah, that's not what they do in the hospital though, Josh. They have you on your fucking back. They don't say, "Oh, just do what works for you,
Yeah.
bro." They don't say
Yeah,
that.
because I had my son in the hospital and they definitely had me on my back and it was traumatic as fuck. That's why I had my daughter in a birthing center because I ain't elite level. Yeah, I can't have a baby at the house yet. Maybe the next one. But I did have like the medicine ball and I had my daughter on all fours and like I definitely got to. Me and Rashna was talking about it the other day and I was telling her like my labor was long but I didn't feel nothing. She was like, that's because you was moving, girl. Like you was doing what you needed to do so it wasn't intense. So, yeah.
All right. So now that we know they got you in the hospital, in the wrong position, they got you all fucked up. Okay. Let's take a look at the history of these hospital interventions. All right. Yo, how did they start? What was some of the faux pas in the beginning? Right. And what were the result of these faux pas?
If you look at obstetrics for the last 50 years, what do you find? In the 1930s, they were giving x-rays on every pregnant woman to measure her pelvis. And then in the 1940s, they discovered that that caused the baby to have cancer. So they had to stop it. And then in the 1950s and 60s, they had another drug called thalidomide, which caused babies to be born without arms and legs. And then they had to stop that. But you see, in every case, it was after the fact. In the 1990s, they were giving Cytotec to induce labor in women who had had a previous cesarean. And they ended up with hundreds and hundreds of ruptured uteruses and many, many, many dead babies before they found out finally in 1999 that they shouldn't do that. But you see, there's not a good history in obstetric practice of careful study of the long-term effects of all these interventions. This is why, if you really want a humanized birth, the best thing to do is to get the hell out of the hospital.
All right. So start off, they was giving X-rays to mothers. They was X-raying the fuck out these moms' pelvis when they was pregnant and was giving cancer to fucking babies. All right. These are your medical professionals. X-raying the fuck out of pregnant moms and giving cancer to babies. Okay. Then they move on to thalidomide that they were giving moms, And that shit was causing babies to be born with no arms and no legs. These are your medical professionals, right? What they call it, they say doctors are practicing. This is his practice. Yeah, these motherfuckers is practicing, right? And practice be fucked up sometime. Anybody ever play sports know in practice, practice be fucked up. Except for they're practicing on you. Just like I told you that story at the beginning of the show with my son, right? She was practicing on his nose. And he was like, I need to go back and tell these people something. Because they lied, right? Except they lied didn't cost him his life or his arms or his legs this time. And then you get to cytotech, which is killing babies. It's causing uteruses to be damaged and killing babies. Roshne, did you say they still use cytotech?
They sure do. They use Cytotec or misoprostol to soften the cervix. They still give it.
Hey man, sometimes practice take longer. Some people's practice is longer than others. All right. So they're still using some of these deadly drugs. And so this is what they did in the past. All right. Now let's look at because this was mentioned before as to you have the option to get the C-section, right? They just present it to you. It's your choice. Let's see how that option comes about.
They've told women, come to us, we'll take care of everybody's birth. Doesn't matter what kind of birth you want. We're open to anything. And then you get there and you realize, no, the hospital system is really set up one way to handle one kind of birth. And you just get put through that system. And it's a fight to try to not get put through that system.
Oh, she was 2 to 390. Excellent. Pitocin.
This is Pitocin, which is the medication given through the IV that causes contractions.
2, induction is doing fine. Just check that she's on pit.
How much demo were you going to get?
Room 3 being induced.
Give the equivalent of Stadol. Just make sure we're going up on the pit.
Just make sure that she's on pit and something's happening with her induction.
Pit her means to basically instructing the nurse to start Pitocin.
I asked to keep upping the pit.
Probably about 90% of our patients at some point are on some type of augmentation.
She's not anywhere near adequacy, so we just have to keep upping the pit.
If you're not making that change in that segment of time that we're looking for, then we're going to try to facilitate things.
Maybe start hit. So we need to upper Pitocin. Pit at 6:30.
Hospitals are businesses. They want those beds filled and emptied. They don't want women hanging around in the labor room.
You get this feeling at the hospital where there's like a limit to how long you can be in labor. Like, oh, it's been 12 hours, so now you need Pitocin.
Oh, I did know the pressure was on, as we got into like 20 hours, 21 hours.
At the hospital, I had Pitocin, and then that made me itchy, so they give you something else for your itching.
I knew once they gave you that Pitocin, you need the epidural.
Feel better now that you have the epidural? Oh my God, yeah.
And then things come on really strong, so then you get an epidural.
And if you're uncomfortable, we can always give you more.
It was very easy for them to start doing things that we hadn't really wanted them to do, like Pitocin and whatnot, because I already had the IV in my arm.
They don't really give you the option,
And then another epidural, because nothing was happening.
You're having your contractions right now.
I don't feel pain.
Automatically, they were like, oh, you need an epidural. We'll get the anesthesiologist.
So she's getting her epidural, then we'll put in the Foley bulb for induction.
They gave me another drug called Stadol.
17 hours of Pitocin.
They gave me that, and I remember that made me, I was like, what's going on? What's going on? There's something wrong.
Cervidil was the end. Once Cervidil happened, any chance beyond that, it was gone. It was gone.
I hated that drug.
It seemed to me that once they started an intervention, they all just it was a domino effect.
The whole thing is like a big snowball effect.
In the hospital, you're not allowed to have very long labors. So if you're not dilating rapidly, which you're likely not to do if you get an epidural early in labor, you will be given Pitocin. They'll put the Pitocin in the IV. It will flow into your veins. Pitocin makes contractions longer and stronger and closer together. So then the pain of labor is much worse. So you go with that for a while because you have the epidural, but eventually the pain of the contractions is overwhelming the epidural. You need to up the epidural, and then labor slows down more because of that. So then you need more Pitocin. Now you're not feeling the pain of the extra Pitocin because you've got the epidural, but your baby is getting compressed blood and oxygen supply because Pitocin contractions last so long and are so strong, the blood and oxygen flow to the baby is compromised. So then the baby's likely to go into distress, and then you're sent off for an emergency cesarean from a baby in distress from contractions induced by the Pitocin, which was necessitated by the epidural.
Step by step, one intervention leads to a series of interventions. And the net result is the mother finally ends up with cesarean, and everybody says, thank God we were able to do all those interventions to save your baby. The fact of the matter is, if they didn't start the cascade of interventions, none of that would have been necessary.
There is clearly an association with induction of labor and cesarean delivery.
People don't have the information. When you look at obstetrics in general, there's been a series of very intense interventions that physicians have been doing day in and day out to millions of women, and there's not a medically justified reason for doing those things. Even common sense. I mean, the idea of lying down with your legs up being the most comfortable or logical position to give birth.
Diabolical.
So that's the trick bag, right? They give you the trick bag right there. Okay, so you come in, even if you don't get the epidural right away, they come in and they'll be like, well, you know what? You've been here for 15 hours. We're not getting much. We're not getting much up out of you. You're like, it's just slow. We might need to induce. Okay. Then you say, no, you know what? I want to wait. Well, baby could be in distress, right? Like this, it could be dangerous. You don't know what's going on, right? They hit you with all kinds of fear tactics and scare words, right? And then they hit you with the tone. So it's not just, well, I don't know. It's well, baby's in distress, and so we want to get it. We want to get the baby up out of here. Like we want to help the baby along before it gets dangerous for him. And then they start hitting you with all kinds of fucking scary scenarios, right? Who said that? Somebody said something?
No, I was just saying,
Oh,
yeah, that whole shit is diabolical. And if you have not seen that shit in person,
I've
man,
seen it in person.
that's what I'm saying. So it's like you able to
I've seen
explain
it
it,
in
and
person too, and them babies,
that shit.
if they would have stayed in there, them babies would have been more fucked up than they was coming out. You understand what I'm saying? Because there was some real serious ass situations where they should have been brought them babies out, but they fucked around and was playing around, and them babies came out real jammed up. Okay, so we're
Yeah.
not gonna act like it's a whole situation where every time that happens, you know what I mean, that it's like, oh, it's a false flag. No, sometimes them babies be in distress and they need to come out when they.
Okay. All right. Say it. Rashna, you there?
Yes, I am.
All right. So, how many births have you been around? Like in your career, how many births have you done?
Oh, I'm horrible with keeping count, but I'm going to guesstimate close to 50.
All right. So, in the close to 50 births, how many times would you say a cesarean was absolutely necessary?
Uh, thank you. Thank you. See you in New Orleans? Yep. Take care of yourself. Thank you too. That's hard. I personally have not dealt with any real emergencies.
All right.
Um,
So if you ain't had no real emergencies,
yeah, I
how
haven't had
many?
any real emergencies.
So how many of your 50 were C-sections?
So I've done home births too. Uh, you know what? Maybe one of those. One of those was really needed a C-section because it was twins. They were
Mhm.
preemie. and mom went into labor super early. That was a
Okay.
necessity.
Okay.
Um, I'm gonna guesstimate. Shoot, I feel like lately I've seen more than usual.
Mm.
So based off my statistics from this year, half of my births have been C-sections unnecessarily.
All right. So when I was looking at the documentary, there was a lady in there. She ran a birthing center. She said she didn't have her first C-section at the birthing center until baby, I think it was 125, is when she had the first C-section from the ladies that came to a birthing center. And then they didn't have the next one, she said, until like baby 387, right? And so that's a far cry from the 40%, 35% a clip that we're seeing right now. So I think the national average right now is 33%. And so a lot of that is fear mongering. A lot of it's
Yeah,
fear mongering.
I've been to, I'm gonna say just in the last month and a half, I've been to 6 births. And out of those 6 births, 4 of them were C-sections. And out of those 4, 3 of those mamas, obstetricians, were telling them from pregnancy that their baby was too big. So once they got to like 8, 9 centimeters and then labored slowed down, they'd be like, oh, they check them. Then they're like, I'll be back in 30 minutes to see if you made any change. Like, what the fuck? 30 minutes? She's not making no change in 30 minutes? Well, it's been 30 minutes. You still haven't had any cervical change. Like, remember I told you, baby's probably too big. And then they babies come out and be like 7 pounds, average size, 6 pounds. And these aren't like micro, tiny, petite women. They're average size women. One of them was actually like larger than your average size woman, but was told her baby was too small for her pelvis.
You're too big for the
Too big,
pelvis.
too big, right?
Yeah.
That's
So
wild. 7 pounds. That's how big my babies was.
And then it's like mama's gotten to the point where she gets an epidural, so we're not able to like, we can still move her around in the bed, but it's harder. So it makes it harder when it comes time to push because she's numb and can't really feel where it is she needs to push or how she needs to push efficiently. So then it's like, I need to push my baby out. I'm laying on my back because it's the only position I could push in because I've decided to get the epidural. And now I can't push efficiently because I can't feel and I'm laying on my back.
And it's also the fact that moms aren't really prepared because they haven't been stretching, they haven't been moving and utilizing and stretching out those muscles that, they're supposed to be so that that baby can go through, that passageway the way that it's supposed to.
And even with that, it ends up being like sometimes, yeah, that is the case. Maybe mom got lazy towards the end of pregnancy and she wasn't really moving a lot. The other side of that is that we have really fit, strong moms who have not learned the opposite. So it's like they work out all the time, they stretch all the time, but they haven't learned to relax their pelvic floor. Or they've got some mental things going on that they haven't worked through that's preventing them from having their baby. Like one of my clients who delivered on Easter, she had a beautiful unmedicated labor. We got to 9 centimeters and she was stuck at 9 centimeters over 12 hours. And after about maybe 5, she's like, I don't know why I'm so scared to push. And I was like, oh, this is why we're stuck here. And the doctors aren't checking in on that. They're not like, so if you're with a midwife, she's working in all aspects of what's going on. Like, what's your diet like? What's your exercise life like? What's your mental health like? Like, she wants to know all of the things because all those things contribute to what your labor experience is going to be. So, yes, you've been working out, you're healthy, your body went into labor naturally, like you didn't need any medication, you've been roaring in labor for hours and like dilating just fine, but there's just that little mental piece, but doctors aren't checking in on that. So yeah, that was my job as her doula to kind of like work with her, but this was somebody's birth that I got called to on the day she went into labor. I didn't know her from the beginning of this. Her other doula was out of town. So yeah, like I had a moment to be able to work with her like at that time, but these are things like that need to be worked on way ahead of time. She kept herself stuck 9 centimeters at zero station for 12 hours because she was just afraid to push.
So that being like basically where her head is at, just a mental
Yep,
standpoint of what postpones being able to even get to a point of to where you dilated enough to push.
yep.
Hmm.
And OBs don't spend enough time with you in your prenatals to even check in on your mental health. You get 15 minutes, if that.
So there you go. All right. And so this is the snowball effect that they described, right? So they hit you with this. So you come in, even if you don't get an epidural right away, if you slow down, right? If your contractions slow down, you stop dilating. They scare you into the pitocin, right?
I
Pitocin
was just
is
about to say that, Linnell. I'm sorry. I was just about to say that's what they did. Her labor slowed down, and they're looking at just the labor, not like the whole picture. And that's what they implemented was they asked her if she wanted to, like, you've been here for a long time, blah, 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 blah. So then she ended up agreeing to some Pitocin.
Yeah, the pitocin means the contractions are harder and longer and stronger, and you like, oh my god, it's so painful. You want an epidural to go with that? Yes, please. Oh god, I need an epidural. Epidural comes, but you can't push as hard, so now you need some more pitocin because of the epidural has goddamn numbed your little body up, and so you need more pitocin, right? And then finally they hit you with the what's that? The studol, the Cerbidol, right? That's the finishing touch, right? And they're like, all right, we got to go get the Cerbidol makes the because the pitocin is constricting the area. Baby's oxygen level goes down, right? And they say, oh, the baby's in distress. Look, the oxygen level is dipping. They point to you as red all on the fucking charts.
Yep, the motherfucking thing keep beeping and
The
shit.
thing
Well, they
keep
have the
beeping.
monitors turned up hella loud. I always turn them down because it's just like, this is unnecessary.
Facts. Monitors loud, chart is red, it's dipping down. The doctor said, oh my God, the baby's in distress. You think the baby's dying. Oh, it's something I did. I don't know what's going on. They're like, you know what? We got to go in and get it. And then you say, okay.
Well, and what happens is like naturally so baby's heart rate is going to dip a little, right? We're not what we don't want to see is like a massive decel. So like anything more than 10 points lower than what their average has been. Baby's heart rate is going to fluctuate up and down a little bit. This is just signs of a natural heart, I mean of a healthy heart rate. And then when you have a contraction because there's compression, baby's heart rate's going to go down. But when you're unmedicated, you're breathing heavily, and those big, heavy breaths is what helps baby to recover um, from those dips, from the contractions. But when you get an epidural, you're no longer feeling the contractions, but your baby is. So the baby's still going to have those dips. And so what I always try to remind my clients is every time you see a contraction on the monitor, if you can still feel them, or just periodically, like continue to take those big deep breaths because that's what's going to help your baby to recover from those contractions. But we're not like nobody's telling us like you don't feel labor, but your baby's still feeling labor, your baby's still affected, but you over here just like this feels great, I'm not feeling anything.
Mm-hmm. Next thing you know, C-section. All right. Next thing you know, C-section. All right. And so one of the things they don't talk about, however, is the dangers of getting a C-section.
Accusations tonight that some hospitals are not being upfront with patients who are expecting a baby.
New York state law says that hospitals must give expectant mothers information about the birth procedures in their hospitals. But a report out today charges that the hospitals are ignoring the law.
One of the big problems in this country is the information that is given to women.
There really is not informed consent obtained from these women. Nobody talks about all of the downside, all of the things that can go wrong in a section.
The risks of a vaginal delivery are much less than a C-section. And what a lot of people don't know is a C-section is major surgery.
You know, the literature is very clear that having a vaginal birth statistically is the best way to go.
The first C-section in almost everyone is perfectly simple. It's the second, it's the third, it's the fourth, it's the fifth C-section that poses a huge risk to the mom in terms of injury to her bladder, injury to the intestines. We've had patients where you go in and the appendix is right on top of the uterus, where loops of bowel are wrapped around the uterus, and you have to cut through all of that before you can even get to the baby. There is blood loss that can't necessarily be controlled.
It's major surgery, and yet we now present cesarean section as if we're cutting your fingernails.
It's another thing, too, that I think that people aren't really talking about so much now. I know so many women with C-sections who end up with really bad infections, and they're becoming harder to treat with antibiotics. And that's one area where I feel like we're going back in time a little bit, because having an infection that you cannot treat is so scary.
Most of the deaths that do take place in the United States happen for women who went to the hospital. How do I know that? Because 0.5% of women give birth at home. And yet our death rate is higher than some third world countries. We have areas in the United States where it's sky high.
People in our culture spend more time and effort researching to buy a stereo system, a car, probably a camera, than they do checking out what their choices are for birth.
So it's not that C-sections can't save lives, Miss Belly. That's not the discussion we're having. I think Rashanae, she just gave an example of, she had somebody who they had twins, right? The twins were coming out early, right? And she was like, C-section was needed for that, right? So I don't think the position we're taking is that C-sections are not, should never be done. The position that we're taking is that C-sections are overdone, and not just by a little bit, right? And not for the right reasons. Right, they're done for the convenience of the doctors and the staff at the hospitals. They're done because they're, for lack of a better term, a lot of times they're bored and they want to get the shit over with, right? Or they're trying to avoid some sort of malpractice insurance, right? So I think that's the position that we're taking, right? Not that they're not useful and that they don't have a place, right? They have a place. The issue is that they're not being used properly, all right? And they're more dangerous than what they let on, right? The way that they say, the way, they present it as if it's, oh no, let's just go ahead and do the C-section, right? Hey, Roshni, how often do they? How much information do they give about C-sections before it happens?
So I'm not sure as far as in the prenatal appointments, but at that moment, the way that they present it is it's routine, it's super safe, we do this all the time. It'll be really quick, baby will be out in 30 minutes and on your chest, and you could be done with all this. This is always how it's presented. It's fast, it's efficient, we do this all the time, completely safe. They have you sign some papers, nobody's really reading through them because it's in a few minutes.
Mm-hmm.
And in prenatal visits, they definitely
birth is my life's work. I love birth. I love pregnancy, all things encompassed in that. I have been so angry with how I have seen birth unfold in the last couple months, where I'm just my life as a doula is not going to last much longer because this shit is pissing me off. I had a client who went into labor, so we thought. She presented like she was in active labor. I went to her house just to check on her, and because she was laboring hard, I was like, okay, I can't leave. And her mom was worried, so we had a lay midwife come do a labor check. She was at 3 centimeters, baby was at like -1 station, so we still had some work to do. And she labored. She kept being super nauseous, so she was probably dehydrated, so we kept trying to get her to drink and kept trying to get her to eat. We went into the hospital for a labor check. When we went into the hospital, she was in triage. She was measured at 5 centimeters. Okay, great. We're almost at 6. Like, we're in active labor. It's good for us to stay here. She decided to stay. We went upstairs. A second person measured her at 5 centimeters. We labored. She wanted an unmedicated birth, so we labored quite some time, unmedicated, doing all the things. That midwife who checked her the second time measured her again before she left, and she's like, you're still at 5 centimeters. Okay, now this is 3 times that she's had a cervical exam at 5 centimeters. That midwife leaves and goes home. Another midwife comes on shift. She gives her a vaginal exam. She's like, I don't know who said you were 5 centimeters. I would barely give you 3.5. And me giving you 3.5 is being generous. Wait, are you telling me and by this time, she was over 24 hours in labor, super dehydrated and exhausted and just nauseous. So she's doing all the things. Like, she's got IV fluids. She hadn't slept in like 48 hours. So now she's on the brinks of like, I think I just want to get the epidural so I can rest. I just can't rest. She gets the epidural. They start Pitocin, because I think her labor pattern was just kind of like all over the place. They get her hydrated. And then after all of these things, her nurse comes in and she's like, why didn't they send you home last night? And we're like, what are you talking about? She's like, when you came here, they put it in the computer that you were only 3.5 centimeters. Why didn't they just give you some fluids and send you home? So now this woman has been told she was 5 centimeters, but she was really 3 centimeters. And that's the difference between like non-active labor and active labor. And she's made decisions, and I have like talked with my client on the preference of us believing she was in active labor and she wasn't. And so now she's made decisions in her birth story thinking she's just been in active labor all this time. So then now we're on the brinks of like the third day. Now baby is distressed because we've been doing all these things for all this time unnecessarily, and ultimately she ended up having to have a C-section like that. And I remember asking them, like, how can the variability of checking a cervix be that significant? I understand like everybody has different size fingers and hands, like we're gonna see some variability, but 3.5 to 5 is quite significant. But they just like, oh, like, it just happens. Everyone has different size hands.
Bruh. Well, she had the
And that's just
midget
okay.
hands
So
before.
she unnecessarily ended up having to have, I don't know. She unnecessarily ended up having to have a C-section when she should have been at home laboring and waiting for active labor to start. But
That's
there's
tough.
only so much that I can do as the doula, because I can't give you any medical advice. I can't make any decisions for you. Like, all I can do is give you like the facts and have a conversation with you. Whatever you decide is up to you.
All right. Let's get to brass tacks. We've talked a lot today. If you just got here, what's going on, everybody? My bad. I had to get some water. Rashanae talking made me thirsty. Just listening to that story. Like, I was like, yeah, I'm thirsty too. Shit.
Not you needed fluids.
I did. I swear to God. You know what I'm saying? Check my diaphragm.
I have a question now.
What'd you say?
I have a question. So, did you also find any information about, you know, Black women compared to other women that have C-sections?
So yeah, I think I got a chart for that. Hold on. So, what's going on, everybody? How y'all feeling up in this joint? we are. I appreciate y'all hanging out, man. We're here every Wednesday and Friday. So Wednesdays Conspiracy University, Fridays is Conspiracy Cookout with the Tinfoil family. Today's topic, we're talking eugenics, but in a very very specific arena. We're talking about um, births and C sections. We talked about some birth control earlier. How it was utilized, what it was utilized for. Um, and so now we just got done talking about C-sections and how they're being misused, right? We're talking about C-sections being misused. Um, and let's see. So in terms of mortality rates, Ramona, I definitely have mortality rates by race in maternity, right? And so the worst mortality rates are Black women, followed by the Native American and Alaskans, and then less than half of the so Black women are at around 55,
That sounds right.
right? And so white
Mhm.
women are at around 30, 29, 28,
Where
something like
Josh
that.
go? Why he leave
Exactly.
now?
Exactly, Allie.
Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah,
Talking
I know,
that
right?
smack
Josh was talking
in the
all that
chat.
I was
yang,
just like, you
and
and your white
yeah,
wife, child, please.
Right. Go somewhere.
yeah. Yeah, Josh was talking kind of privileged in the chat. But let's get to
Oh my God.
I know. Let's get to brass tacks, right? So it's a lot of stuff that goes on um with C-sections unnecessarily being given to people. Like it ain't even just Black people, it's people period, right? They force C-sections on everybody. All right. So let's get to it's a couple things we want to get to that I think is the most important aspect of the whole thing, right? So one, let's talk about the cost.
What I really had a hard time understanding is that it's cheaper to have a birth with midwives. You'd think they would be all over it.
There's some hospitals in New Hampshire where a normal spontaneous vaginal delivery is around $13,000. Hello, I'm charging $4,000 for everything. That includes the postnatal care, everything, including the facility fee.
So it kind of makes you wonder what their agenda is.
The insurance companies are part of the establishment. And so when the obstetricians who are giving the advice to the insurance companies say that home birth is dangerous or that midwives are not as safe as doctors and all of this nonsense, the establishment CEO in the insurance companies believes them.
I've interviewed a lot of nurse midwives, and I noticed that as soon as their practice reaches more than 30% of the women in a certain hospital, the doctors will start firing them because that's too much competition.
The AMA, as the trade organization for physicians, has a very clear, publicly stated stance that they will not support anything that allows for non-physicians to do anything that physicians do. I mean, you want to talk big lobby, big dollars, they can kind of call a lot of shots.
All right. So one, C-sections, right? So a vaginal birth 13 is 13,000. A midwife is 4,000. What she says she charges for, right? However, a C-section in the hospital ranges from 17 to 40,000, right? From as much as 40,000. Get me? When you talk about a C-section. So that 13 from the vaginal, just they can triple that if they give you a C-section. So that's big money right there.
Well, it's probably more now. Those numbers are old. So now
Facts.
a midwife charges about 8,000 on average here in California, and a vaginal birth in the hospital is about 20 on average.
Yeah. Oh damn. You know what? That's an average though. That's in California. Y'all expensive. So you go to Mississippi, it's probably a third of that for everything. Right. So I think that was the national averages I just gave you. All right. But it's essentially, um, it's how much is how much the C section is in Cali, Rashne?
I don't. Upwards to 40 sounds about right.
Yeah. So we're talking about 40 to 50. So it's not cheaper to have the C-section. And so what the gentleman said on the clip is that um, the doctors have convinced insurance companies that um, midwives are dangerous, and even the midwives in the hospital, once they get too popular, the doctors start to get rid of them because they're taking money out of the doctor's
Can
hands.
y'all can y'all hear me?
Yeah, I hear you now.
According to estimates from Healthcare Cost Institute, the average cost of a C-section in California with commercial insurance is $21,000. For those without insurance, the average cost can be significantly higher, around 50,000.
What was it with insurance? My bad.
21,000 with, 50,000 without.
Got you. All right. So the doctors have to protect their racket. If this turned into France or any of them other European countries where, yo, the midwives do the birthing, doctors don't take care of births. They do emergency trauma shit. When the midwives say, yo, we need you, doctors come. But in other countries that have better mortality rates, countries with better mortality than us, we have the mortality rate in America of a third world country in terms of births. So it's not about mortality.
Hey, yo. Hey, you not lying about what you just said, brother. Our
I ain't been lying
midwife,
all day, man. I've been here for fucking 3.5 hours dropping heat, man.
our midwife, like right after she had the whole team, as a matter of fact. Sorry about that. It was like five of them that was there that worked with us periodically throughout the birth of my son. All five of them are no longer there, and my son, I mean, literally, it was a year, less than a year later, because we went to the NICU anniversary or whatever, and all five of them are gone. I was like, what the hell is going on? Because we wanted to use them again, or at least one of them, but all five? That's crazy.
Hey, yo. So again, they get too popular, business starts flowing in that direction. You know what? Let's go ahead and let's redirect this business our way. You know what I'm saying? We losing these dollars.
One of the
All
ladies
right.
asked when my girl was like, we got a midwife or we wanted a midwife or something. It was in her little birth, the little birth plan or whatnot. The first lady we saw was like, and, and why do you want to do that? Of course, we left that place after she said that shit, but it was crazy, man, and it was during that COVID shit, so it was real bad, man. It was real bad.
All right. So now I know what y'all thinking. Y'all thinking, hey, they get $50,000 for a C-section. That's big money, especially for 20 minutes of work. Get in, get out, right? They get to run up the hospital tab, charging for everything. Everything you do, they
Shoot, isn't it
charging
double
for,
that
right?
if they keep the placenta?
We ain't got there yet. Relax. You know what I'm saying? Charging for everything you do. Hospital room and board, over 10,000. Surgical fees, at least 6,000. Right? Anesthesia, right? Another, 3,000, 4,000. Then you got the operating room charges. What the fuck is an operating room charge? Just 5,000 just for operating room. Medications.
Oh God.
I know, number 3,000. Then all the lab tests, nigga, they run that shit in house, but they still gonna charge you $2,000, right? Any medical supplies, nigga, gauze, you know what I'm saying? All that bullshit, nigga. They talking about another 2,000. Newborn care, 5,000, 6,000, right? Then they all kind of post-op care, miscellaneous charges, all that shit, another 5,000, 6,000. So they running it up with the
They gonna
50.
charge you for the wheelchair that they took you to the first floor to the third floor.
Man, hey, how you gonna get there? And we had to wheel you. That chair didn't wheel itself, goddamn it. Yeah, X, the booking fee, the fee. They got to charge you a fee for having the fee, right? So they hitting you over head for that 50. They're like, hey, yo. But they don't stop there, right? They don't stop there. It's some more money out there for them to get, right? And they want all of it. What's that other money you talking about?
So there are companies that come in to take women's placentas and use them for pharmaceuticals, for beauty products, for stem cells, basically medical procedures. They're valued at a lot of money. I've heard $50,000. I've heard $500,000.
That much for a placenta?
For a placenta. I've also heard that they're more valuable when they're C-section.
Why?
Because they don't go through the vaginal canal. So they're not as, quote, contaminated. So they can charge more for it.
So you mean to tell me that a company will pay $50,000 or above for a woman's placenta and pay more if they are not given birth vaginally? And is that why so many women are being forced into C-sections?
So they can double their pleasure by taking your fucking placenta. They can double their pleasure. They can get another 50, 60,000 at least by taking the placenta and the umbilical cord.
They take some of your cord anyways, and blood.
And don't let you be trying to take it home with you. Like, what's the procedure for taking your placenta home,
So you
Rashida?
have to sign a release to take your own fucking placenta home. And then you have to make sure you have someone to take it out of the hospital within 2 hours.
So,
But every hospital is different. So
I was about to say ours is different.
some hospitals are like, oh, you want to take your placenta home? Sure. They let you sign the release and then it's just like whatever. And then other hospitals are like, oh, you want to take your placenta home? Like, okay, did you make sure you signed the release? Like, do you know the risk of you taking your placenta home? And then don't let them cause you to get choreo, which is from them doing frequent vaginal exams. Then they're like, oh, you got choreo, like you might not want to take your placenta home now, or it has to go to pathology. But every hospital is different of how they act around the placenta going home. Like they bring in these special containers for it, and they bring that in like as soon as you get admitted to the hospital. Oh, oh, oh.
Yeah, our put it in a biohazard bag, double it up, put it in like a little container with ice for you, and then you transport it like with your own cooler if you brought one, or you like hire somebody or have someone else transport it for you.
yeah, that's what.
Yeah, we
So,
had to have a cooler in order to take ours. Like they offered it, but they did all the double bagging that Jimmy was talking about, but they definitely told us like we got to have our own cooler. That was like a condition when we signed the little paper or whatever.
yo, Val said they had to have a certified person pick it up. What the hell does that mean? Who is certified to pick that shit up? How do you get certified to pick it up?
Somebody like
It was
me.
it was a business. It was someone who had to be certified to
Yeah.
handle bio
It's
waste. Is what they call it. Something like they call it bio waste, which is crazy. But
but
yeah, they had to pick it up, double up, put it in a cooler bag,
listen to it.
and all paperwork and all that, just like you guys described.
Now, oddly enough, so you know how they say, so they'll take it if they take your placenta. First of all, they're gonna charge you for disposing it, and then they're gonna fucking sell it, right? Then they're gonna fucking sell it. They're gonna get somewhere around 50,000 for it.
They
Get
ain't even
me?
gonna take that off my bill. Like y'all
Yeah.
need to discount that.
Hell no, they ain't gonna take that off your bill. You ain't even supposed to know about this. You know what I'm saying? And now the fucked up part is it's illegal for you to sell your own placenta.
It's
You
bio waste, bro.
So I want to ask. Has anyone seen the lab results of their cord gases? Um, the cord gases testing. Does
No,
anyone know what that is?
I ain't see mine.
No,
What
because
is
I
it?
You
don't
gotta
even
break
know
that
what
down.
to ask, yeah, or like who to ask for it or whatever.
Yeah. My
So,
core gas is always the same. Well, what you
We
got going?
know.
What the fuck I'm saying?
so they will either take a piece of the cord and um, maybe like a half a cup of the cord blood, whether you're taking it home or not. And they say it's for cord gases testing. And this testing is to test the acidity and oxygenation in baby's blood. But I don't think that this is something parents know that they're doing. So that's why I'm asking, like, has anybody ever heard of this or seen it? Because I've seen it done at every hospital birth. And I've asked multiple times, and every time I ask, I get a different answer. Like, it's either, oh, it's for research, or it's for cord gases, or it's for, I can't remember, oh, the newborn screen, so that they don't have to poke baby again. I've gotten different answers every time I ask.
When you told us about the placenta that was like not very veiny, that's not. Remember that
Oh, and
placenta?
it had the velamentous cord
Yes. Do
insertion.
you think they did that?
hmm
What you just told us about? Do you think they did that with that one?
They took some blood.
Yes.
So that was the first placenta I saw that being done to, because I hadn't seen a birth in the hospital. Um, I had been doing home births before then, so that was my first hospital birth, besides my own. And I saw them take that blood, and that was when I started asking the questions. So yes, they did.
So essentially, you're saying they come so after the birth, they come, they take, so they
No, they
always
don't
take a piece of
come.
the cord. Oh,
So what
go ahead.
happens is there's already nurses set up to do this. So they have a cup that you would typically put urine in for urinalysis. They fill that up half the way. They fill up some vials of blood, and then sometimes they'll also cut a piece of the cord off. This is stuff that's already set up in the room. So these are things that are happening like once baby's born and is on mama's chest and she's like oohing and awing, and everybody's focused on the baby. So no one really sees what's going on, and they do it really fast. So as soon as they get that blood, there's a nurse specifically to get that blood who will then take it out of the room once the blood is collected.
And they never tell you what it's really for or what they're doing. They just say, "Oh yeah, we got to run tests on it."
Nope. I've asked parents to like see if they would give them paperwork on it. I've asked parents to get the paper for the release of their placenta just so we could read through that. And it was, I remember one, my last family, I asked them to do it. The chick was like, "Oh, I think you already signed it. Like, let me see if it's still out here. If it's not still out here, that means that it's in your file. And if it's in your file, then you'll just have to look on your portal." Like, she couldn't just go get us another copy to read through.
Hmm.
Is that all in the in like the birthing process, Rashane? Like all that stuff happens while mom is giving birth. So like it's not post.
Yep. So it is post. It's right after baby comes out and baby's put on mama's chest. So depending on if they're doing delayed cord clamping. So if they're doing delayed cord clamping, they have to wait. If they're not delaying the cord clamping like an extended period of time before the uterus releases the placenta, they'll cut it, they drain that blood in the cup, they clip it off, dad comes to cut the baby's cord. So it's like after the cord is cut. The cord is cut, and then dad cuts the cord. After dad cuts the cord, he goes back to oohing and on over baby with mom, and then they collect that blood. Then
And the question is, what do they do with that
the
blood?
question is, what do they do with that blood?
Ah, okay.
Because why
And
are
it's
they
a
taking it? That's why I was asking everyone, like, do you guys know your results of your cord gases testing? Like, has that been mentioned to you? Because that's what it's said. So the last answer I got for that procedure was, oh, it's for cord gases testing.
They run tests on it to see if you got superpowers.
It's
Facts.
all so mechanical, and it's also, or let me rephrase that, routine, right? And especially because it's right after the baby gets here, so everybody's distracted.
Mm-hmm.
I know somebody that I'm gonna ask. That's a great, now I know what question to ask. So I'm gonna ask that question for someone that's in that process and see if
Mm-hmm.
I can get an answer for you.
Mm-hmm. I would love
They
to know.
run they run tests on it to see if they can Henry Alex your ass. You laughing and I'm dead serious.
So Rashna, let me ask you a
Mm.
question. So that's the cord, but then like with the placenta, right? For like, us, where we asked for you to be able to get it, like for those parents that don't know, then the hospital just gets to quote unquote dispose of the placenta.
Yep, that's what they say. They say if you don't donate it to research, they're like, oh, we just throw it away, we dispose of it.
That
But it gets put in this like special box. It's not like they're just putting it in a biohazard bag and put it in the biohazard trash. No, there's a special biohazard box. It's either silver or red.
Okay, so great question, Miss Melody. So they, even though they say they throwing it away, they don't, right? Um, and so what they say is, they say that hospitals don't typically sell placentas directly to buyers. However, placentas are sometimes donated or sold to companies and organizations for various purposes. All right. So some of the companies that purchase placentas from hospitals are medical and biotech companies. Why? For research, right? Drug development and stem cell therapies. Remember, they want the stem cells. All right, we talked about that earlier. The stem cells is what's important here. That's stem cells make the world go round. Okay, they sell it to cosmetic and skincare companies. They use placenta extracts like collagen and growth factors in beauty products. High end, oh, excuse me. Some anti aging creams and serums contain placentas, um, especially in Asia. They contain placental extracts. All right. They sell them to, let's see, medical waste processing companies. All right. So processing into medical grade products. All right. Companies that handle biohazard waste, firms converting waste into usable medical materials. Hmm. They'll sell it to placenta encapsulation services.
Hold on, bro.
Right.
Didn't you
So
say earlier something was regarded as medical waste?
yeah, placenta. Yeah. Placentas is medical waste.
Okay.
Placentas is medical waste. Aborted fetuses is medical waste. All of that shit gets sold to these same people, right? What they tell you is medical waste. It's kind of like when we had that conversation about the nuclear waste, right? How they be talking, oh, nuclear waste, this you got to protect it. You know it's really dangerous, but in real life they use it. They're telling you it's waste, but in real life they use it for other shit. So it's not really waste. There's no such thing as waste. No such thing as nuclear waste. Just like here, what they're calling medical waste is really shit that they sell to other people. They call it medical waste so that you don't know that they're charging big money for it. So they can keep just taking it for free. Imagine what would happen if everybody knew that their placenta was getting sold for more than the cost of the hospital stay. You know what I mean? Like it's a thing. And that's what's going on. Like it's a racket. Um
Solomon, is this the same process? How you say people be working at like the CDC they push something and then get reassigned to like the CDC and then go operate in the business? Is this the same thing?
Yeah, it can happen. Yeah, so people who make the laws, right? Like, oh man, look, as of now, we can't do this thing with placentas. We want to be able to. It makes it easier for our business model if we could sell directly to this company, that company. Somebody in the CDC says, you know what? Um, that's a good idea, good regulation. We can deregulate this. Then after the law goes through, they quit the CDC and go work for the company they just deregulated. Like that fucking happens. All right. So who else is buying placentas? Academic and clinical research institutions, like universities and medical schools, research labs studying placental health and fetal development. Um, Tissue banks and stem cell banks. They store placental tissue or stem cells for future medical use. Cord blood banks and companies preserving stem cells for families. All right. So there's no shortage of entities that will buy placentas and this medical quote unquote waste. There's no shortage of companies. All right. So essentially, um, like the whole process has been monetized. And that's kind of what we went over, right? From start to finish, the entire process is monetized and weaponized. Get me? And it's all part of the eugenics plan because all the things that they use, things that they take from black people, they use that to help somebody else live longer. Every time they take some waste from one place, they move it to someplace else and use it for regeneration. That's what the whole process is. All right. And that's what we talked about. All right. It's a big old system. And this system is in concert with other systems. But it's all part of the eugenics fucking agenda. It's all eugenics. All right. Every last bit of it. Depopulation, keeping people in the medical industrial complex, all right, and monetizing every step of the way. You know what I mean? All right. Anybody got any questions? Like we talked about a lot, man. It's real good. Any questions about anything we talked about so far? Okay. The last thing we're gonna throw in is what happens when the baby gets here. So Rashne just told you, Tauruses are terrible people. Knock it the fuck off. So Rashne just told you, what happens when, what am I doing? Oh, what's it called? She just told you what happens when, when the baby's born, everybody's, uh, everybody's distracted, and while everybody's distracted with the new baby, they're stealing the placenta, stealing blood, stealing all kinds of shit. You're literally being robbed, right? They're robbing you while you're looking at the new baby, all right?
And they got you
Overstretching the
signing
book,
a bunch of paperwork too.
signing shit. And so there's something else that happens really, really quickly before you even know it. And if you don't have a plan to deal with it, it just like the C-section can cause big problems and end up doing something that you didn't want to do. Right? Kima said it. Right? They start the vaccination process.
Well, we do know that the practice of giving vitamin K injections newborn babies drastically increases the leukemia risk. So just from that, we know this is a pretty risky thing to do. Um, a lot of these things become just standard practice, and you can ask most physicians, why are you doing this, and they'll give you oh, well, this is to prevent clotting problems. And so you say, well, what is the research showing clotting problems? They don't know. It's almost like a rumor. Well, it's just a rumor. You're supposed to do this, but they can't explain why. And then when someone says, well, have you looked at the research or what happens when you do this procedure or this routine thing? And you find all this literature that says, well, actually, there are consequences. A lot of physicians are just flying by the seat of their pants. They were taught this rumor in medical school, and it sticks in their head. It's kind of like the hepatitis B vaccine. I did a lot of research on the hepatitis B, and I said, why are you giving a hepatitis B vaccine to a newborn? The place in the world that has the lowest incidence of hepatitis B is the United States. It's not a real problem except in mothers who are drug users or prostitutes. Hepatitis B in a newborn is not a big problem. It's not the dangerous form of hepatitis you see with other things like hepatitis C. So you ask most physicians, why are you getting hepatitis B vaccine? Why are you giving it to children? They couldn't tell you. They've never looked at hepatitis B. They've never looked at the literature. They've never examined. They're just taking the word of a professor, and then you look at the professor and you find out, well, he's got a lot of connections with pharmaceutical companies. He's getting big money. If you vaccinating a child at birth for hepatitis B or anything else, the child doesn't have a functional immune system at that point. So you're not really going to protect the child for any length of time. And then when they looked, sure enough, 2 years later, there was no protection whatsoever. And so all these babies were vaccinated. The hepatitis B vaccine has the highest aluminum level of any vaccine. It's extremely dangerous. It loads the child's brain with aluminum, which is a very powerful neurotoxin. It produces chronic activation of the microglia in the brain. And like I said, activating those cells in the brain, those immune cells of the brain, produces maldevelopment of the brain, all kinds of neurological problems. We all know that. I mean, it's full of all of these studies. The literature is just packed with it. But the average physician's never heard of it. He's never going to look at it. He's not going to listen to you. And he's not going to listen to the people, the experts that haven't reviewed the literature. And that's the problem. And so, my call to parents is you're going to have to start learning these things yourself. And you need to listen to those of us who are considered skeptics and whatever gaslighting name they can call it. You better look at what we're studying. You better look at what we're saying.
Shout out to Dr. Blaylock and all the skeptics around this joint, right? So as soon as you turn your back, right? When they trying to make sure you okay, they whisking the baby away and they giving them the vitamin K and the Hep B shot. Right? So the vitamin K, y'all know why they get a baby vitamin K shot? So vitamin K is for clotting. Newborn babies aren't bleeding. The only newborn babies that are bleeding are ones that they take to go get circumcised.
Hey man, that vitamin K, it threw my little man's off, man. That was the only thing he got, but and they did it when I wasn't in the room. They kind of talked my girl into it, but it clotted the shit out of his blood to the point where when they was trying to check him for anemia, I think it was, where
Mm-hmm.
they get the blood, they kept stabbing him in his foot and nothing came out, and it caused his sugar to drop, and that was one of the major reasons why he had to go to the NICU, because he had tremors. He was like shaking because his sugar was so low. So yeah, that vitamin K is not needed. I learned about it afterwards, though, of course.
Mm-hmm. What you say, Rashna? You think is needed in some cases? Well, yeah, again, some cases. When would you say is needed, Rashna? There she go. Maybe she busy. But yeah, you said especially if the mom was given antibiotics. But there's also a natural way to build up your vitamin K, and moms to encourage vitamin K built in babies' bodies. But that's anecdotal. Sweet. So yeah, the vitamin K, again, if you girls, like for boys that's finna get circumcised, I get it. Right? It's like, we gotta make sure he's not, you know, because circumcision isn't natural. Right? So you weren't born like to have your shit circumcised right then and there, and so they're gonna cause you to bleed. Want to make sure you don't bleed out. But girls, why are you giving that shit to girls? They're not gonna get circumcised. And the Hep B, right? Something that if the mother ain't got it, why are you shooting it up with the kids?
Well, vitamin K is also necessary depending on what the birth story was. So if they had to use a vacuum or forceps, which would then cause like injury to baby, they want baby to be able to hurry up and clot their blood so they don't bleed out.
Got you. But if they,
Yeah.
yeah, but if they went through a C-section, then do they need? That's none of that's necessary, right?
No, but some of the history says they started using it more routinely once they started doing like the twilight births and implementing vacuums and forceps.
They
Yeah.
told us something like the trauma that the baby go through going through the birth canal could cause bleeding or something, and they wanted it to clot up instead of bleed out or some shit like that, which I knew was some bullshit because I'm looking at my baby and I'm like, this nigga ain't bleeding at all. What the fuck? And then they waited 2 days to circumcise the nigga, so why would he need a vitamin K shot right away? You know what I'm saying? If y'all waited 2 days to do his circumcision, and they wanted to make sure that was something that what we wanted to be done, so giving it to him right away, it don't make no damn sense to me unless it's trauma. But if it's no trauma, then like you said, like I said, it causes side effects that will cause your baby to be in the
Right.
fucking NICU or something else
And
Facts.
you
that's
can't get
wrong
that
with it.
beef unless from intercourse. So what the hell?
Yeah. Yeah, dude. So that's kind of the whole that that's kind of the whole process, right? So we went through. Now there's more stuff in the process that we didn't talk about, but I thought this was a really comprehensive kind of way to look at the birth process, right? And how they commoditize every step of the way, and how they use every step of the way to service their agenda, right? Um, so, hey man, I hope y'all got something out of this one. All right. So, shout out to Rashanae for bringing it to my attention. Well, actually, I brought it to her attention, and then she started talking, and then I just decided it'd be a good topic. All right.
Did
So I
you
hope
bring it to
You
her
know you ain't right.
attention?
You ain't right.
I ain't right. What you mean I ain't right? What I do? What I do besides give y'all heat?
What
Somebody
them
tell
young
me.
kids say? Diabolical.
Hey yo. Nah, shout out to the homie Rashnae for lending us her expertise. Hey Rashnae, is your homie still gonna come through on Friday and tell us some hospital stories?
Um, as far as I know now, yes, but I'll reach out to her tomorrow to double check.
All right, cool. So one of her midwife homies is gonna come through Friday to tell us some hospital stories, right? About her experience in midwifery. All right. So be on the lookout for that for Friday. I appreciate y'all hanging out, man. Let's do some positivity, man. Let me see what I got for y'all.
And I stayed up all night.
Did you stay
I'm
up all
up.
night? Sounds like you just back up. Did
I'm
you?
up.
All right, good job. Good job, Allie, for staying up all night. All right, guys, this is your moment of positivity. MOP, I guess, is what it's called. Shit.
Most people don't know this, but there's a brain structure called the anterior mid-cingulate cortex. But what's interesting about this brain area is there are now a lot of data in humans, got some mouse study, showing that when people do something they don't want to do, like add 3 hours of exercise per day or per week, or when people who are trying to diet and lose weight resist eating something. When people do anything that they, and this is the important part, that they don't want to do. Right. It's not about adding more work, it's about adding more work that you don't want to do. Yes. This brain area gets bigger. Yep. The anterior mid-cingulate cortex is smaller in obese people. It gets bigger when they diet. It's especially large or grows larger in people that see themselves as challenged and overcome some challenge. In many ways, scientists are starting to think of the anterior mid-cingulate cortex not just as one of the seats of willpower, right, but perhaps actually the seat of the will to live.
Hey, grow that thing, y'all. Grow that thing.
Hey, so you know how Six Red say bow, 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 bow. I tried to put mop, 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 mop in the chat and they told me I couldn't do that.
Hey, man, is that man over pussy? Never mind. Anyway, all right, y'all. Appreciate y'all hanging out, man. This is cool. Like I said, I like deep dives, man. I'm a nerd like that. So hope y'all got something out of it. We'll be back on a Friday to talk about all the new shit going on, all the Diddy shit, Tory Lane shit, like all the Trump shit. It's a bunch of shit going on. So we're gonna do that on Friday. Make sure y'all come hang out with us. Blackistheuniform.com. Blackistheuniform.com. Check out the website. And vigor4pain.com. Remember, Conspiracy University is where the cooks go up. So only the cooks go up on Conspiracy University, the podcast. So you can Google it, type in Conspiracy University, and it's just the cooks that go up there. It's not the whole show, just the main cooks. So if you're trying to send stuff like this to people, then send them the link to Conspiracy University. Yeah, it's dope. All right. Also, remember, Conspiracy Cookout with the 10 Floor Family is the regular podcast. Oh yeah, a rendition. Tauruses are the worst people in the world. I'll put that on game.
To the cookout, but you need the right gear. Blackistheuniform.com, you can get it right here. We talk flat earth and mud floods. You might hear about the dome. No matter the topic, you just need something with the shield on. Blackistheuniform.com, where conspiracy analysts are at home. Blackistheuniform.com, where conspiracy analysts are at home.
Vigor Sport is love and light in a bottle, a CBD infused salve that rids the body of pain, arthritis, carpal tunnel, and muscle aches. There's no job too great for Vigor Sport. Headaches, muscle spasms, and menstrual cramps are a thing of the past. Vigor Sport is the Swiss Army knife of your medicine cabinet. Order your jar today at vigorforpain.com.